Oh, aha. We're live, apparently. Yep, there I am. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Philip Carter Show. Today, we're doing Minecraft and talking about the Cosmic Comedy Collection and reviewing the Cosmic Comedy Collection and interviewing two of the authors in the Cosmic Comedy Collection and playing a bit more Minecraft. Basically, this episode is just designed to give you a migraine. Good luck to any AI that wants to copy and paste this content. It will kill you. So yeah, have fun with that. So, what is the Cosmic Comedy Collection? I'm going to let John explain it. Here's John Kuhn.
Cosmic Comedy Collection is science fiction comedy traveling to you at the speed of laughter.
I love that. I should have used that more. If at all, I really love the copywriting you do for stuff. I felt really weird being the front man of this book because obviously it was my idea to put a book together. I wanted to do it for years, but I know there's other people in the team that are more competent than me when it comes to marketing. Whereas I'm just like, I would make a good mascot for something.
Like a hype man.
But, yeah, like hype man. I'm just like, look at this shit. This shit's cool. Not much else. There's not much else going on. Oh, someone's calling me at the same time. Oh, this is fascinating. What's going on? Wow. I think I'm being invited to a Discord call whilst I'm in a Discord call. Whilst I'm podcasting. I'm going to ignore that request. I thought it was the dudes. Yeah, we might have some special guests halfway into this. Or we might not. You got to stay tuned to find out if or not we have guests. There's a podcast idea, just like literally no guests. But yeah, the Cosmic Comedy Collection, which I'm going to now try and build inside Minecraft whilst I'm podcasting, is a collection of 5 comedy stories by 5 people, some of whom didn't think they were comedy writers, but I accosted them until they caved and realised they actually were capable of humour. I think AJ didn't think he was that funny in the beginning, but he's quite the joker, that AJ, quite the prankster. So yeah, I think that was like one of his, not his first comedy story, but he'd not written one for a while, and it's really good. It's also the longest story in the collection, and because he's not here, I'm going to say it's because he's overcompensating. He absolutely is not here to defend himself. So here, for anybody watching on YouTube, here's the letter F, made out of spruce planks in Minecraft. Now that bears absolutely no relevance to this podcast, but I've been watching tutorials on how to make TikToks that retain viewership, and the trick is, make the video make absolutely no sense. So now we're going to go over here and punch this iron golem to death. Yeah, so what did you think of the... what do you think of it anyway? I'm not introduced you yet. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, hidden away in the corner.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I thought you were asking John. I was like,
No,
he's going to
no,
say
no.
it's brilliant.
Yeah, he's bound to say it's
brilliant.
Yeah.
It is
This
brilliant.
one story in particular is just dynamite.
So, quick introduction. My name is Rachel, and I am half of the Devilish Bookworms duo. We are a literary podcast. We read and review books, and our episodes come out every Tuesday. I literally just ripped off my own intro. But this past week, we did the Cosmic Comedy Collection, and Jen and I had so much fun recording that episode. It was great. It's weird with anthologies though, because anthologies, like, we don't want to give away spoilers, so we don't do too much of a recap of the stories. So it's literally just us giving reactions, and the listeners have no context whatsoever.
Yeah. I love the idea of that. I mean, I said before we recorded that I've been really naughty. I've only got like 10 minutes through. But I know, like, from your initial reaction, I'm like, right, okay, this one's going to be received well by the critics, because I'm
like,
glad
she
you
didn't
really loved
block
it.
us, so.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't have invited you on the podcast if you didn't like the book.
Imagine if I came on anyway, and I was like, listen, guys, to be honest.
Yeah, we've been like, hey, Rachel, we're recording a podcast in this cabin in this park. It's definitely not filled with bees. And
That's a hostile takeover of a podcast.
there's an idea for our next a good podcast idea, just a load of bees buzzing, and also a good idea for the next collection, the next short story collection, just like
Just all about bees.
comedy horror instead of comedy sci-fi, and we can call it The Cabin in the Woods, which had lots of angry bees in it and such. And
I love that so much.
every story just at some point gets interrupted by a swarm of bees.
They just buzz from one narrative to another.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of like AJ's story in this collection. He like constantly had that person on the megaphone pop in, and they
Yeah.
were like, "Get off the microphone" or whatever. That was so funny. But it's
AJ,
bees.
it is a good story. That he's absolutely deranged as well. Like his story's brilliant, but he's a crazy guy, and that's why it's good as well.
So I have to ask you real quick, with Roar of the Worlds, what were there supposed to be when I was doing the episode for the podcast? I was like, well, there could be metaphors for, you know, this, and this, or it legit could just be, you know, aliens being memes. So was there intended to be, you know, a look through a mirror into something else, or was it legit just you're like, let's see what I could do with some memes?
It's kind of a bit of both. Like, I'm always like that. In Who Built the Humans, there was a lot of silly stuff, but underneath it, there was like some quite dark points and humor as well. So with Roar of the Worlds, yeah, I definitely wanted to have that angle. I'm really glad you noticed as well. So obviously the title's a play on War of the Worlds.
Sure.
And then I wanted to sort of twist it further than that and just have the aliens be so incompetent. So rather than like being defeated by bacteria, they're just defeated because they're idiots. And I think that's like more
I
true
love that concept because science fiction, like one of the biggest tropes that you always come across is that aliens are all-knowing and either malevolent or benevolent, whatever, but they're like so superior to humanity and they're just so above our level. And I like having a concept or a story where the aliens are actually stupid.
Thanks. Yeah, it's like it was a lot of fun to come up with that. Like I had the idea and I sent it to my friend Grace and she went, you're gonna have to, that's really funny, but you're gonna have to be careful with it. And I was like, why? And she went, well, some memes are quite outdated. And that was the only hard part of writing that story, is making sure it actually made sense. Which, as John knows, he's read some of my first drafts. That's an issue I come up with a lot. It just happens. I just come across as completely insane, and then eventually somebody goes, oh, the aliens are humans the whole time, and also the monkeys can go back in time, and the crab can travel between dimensions, and that computer hates itself. It doesn't really hate humanity. It's actually traumatized, and the computer needs to go to therapy. And I'm like, yeah, now you get it. And that's just like a 5-line poem, and people are like, I don't know how you made it this dense, but thanks. But yeah, like I had one of my earliest reviews I got for Who Built the Humans, like back when I was sending it to beta readers, and by that I mean I had 17 followers on Instagram. 3 or 4 of them I actually knew personally, and I just like sent them scraps of it in Instagram messages. Somebody said this was like a migraine, but if you could enjoy a migraine.
Oh my god.
I was like,
Jeez.
yeah, fair enough. You know, I can't argue with that.
I think honestly,
You
with
need
your
to use
story-
that in marketing.
Yeah, I do, to be honest. This is what I'm saying. Like, you're smarter than me with this stuff. Sorry, Rachel.
No, you're good. With yours, I love the fact that they were kind of underestimated, because at one point they're like, oh no, we're already infiltrated, we're good, and meanwhile we're trying to talk to the aliens like LOLs, like what do you need, bruh, you know?
Yeah, they were just already.
You're like, yeah, no, we're already here.
They're just chilling there. I just love the idea. I imagined it like being made into a TV series as well, which I think I hinted at in one of the lines of dialogue, where I just purposefully didn't describe someone very well because in the TV adaptation they changed like all the attributes of the actress anyway, so fuck it. I was like, there's no point describing this character because she'll be different on the television. Just I love stuff like that. The risk with that is some people like, you know, get a bit grumpy with adaptations, but not in the same way that I just find them funny. Do you know what I mean? Like that, I love that difference between the page and the stage. You know, you describe stuff in books that doesn't necessarily come up in TV. I think my best example of like a TV series that feels like a book is probably Better Call Saul, because there's so much subtle movement in that, and like subtle ways the characters talk to each other. It's absolutely brilliant. And I love like the idea of bringing that serious drama element into comedy as well. Because, you know, if you can get away with adding the depth to a story like that, then you definitely should. So yeah, I tried to have a bit of depth with Roar of the Worlds. I don't know if it hit. I know it's funny because everybody seems to find it funny, but I always wonder, like, is anybody gonna get like the little sneaky bits? It's kind of like writing poetry. It doesn't necessarily matter if people get it right away, because if one person gets it and they really like it, well, then it's sort of achieved its purpose. It's like painting.
You know, that's like the best stories are the ones that are layered like that. So there's like a kind of a superficial layer for the just the average general public,
Yeah.
you know, reader. That, oh, this is really funny, haha. And then there's like the next layer that has kind of the subtler, deeper like meaning. That if somebody's kind of paying attention to it, they'll grab it and it'll be more rewarding for them, because they're like, oh wow, there's, you know, a lot of thought that went into this story. You know, this wasn't just a bunch of for lack of a better way of putting it, this wasn't just a bunch of fart and poop jokes like on Family Guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the hard part with comedy, because like I don't actually know exact. I wouldn't want to claim I know what your exact sense of humor is, John, but I know mine. I can be pretty silly sometimes. Like I don't know, Rachel, have you heard of the story The Very Hungry Caterpillar?
I have, yes.
Yeah, okay, so that's interesting. We've got that across the cultures. I didn't think we'd have got him over to America. But yeah, like I was writing a parody of that the other day with my mum called The Very Farty Caterpillar. And that's like the base level of my humour. And then at the other end of it, there's just like existentialist dread. And what I like is stories that can mix the two. So there was gonna be a line in Roar of the Worlds, which I almost called Invadelians then, because that was the original title, for a bit, kind of retroactive. But there was going to be a bit where they say there's no solid evidence for alien life. And then one of the scientists lifts up a jar with goo in it, and she goes, "What's this then?" And he goes, "That's liquid evidence for alien life." And it's just so stupid. But it didn't fit in the story in the end, but it will find its way somewhere. It's a really interesting thing, because like I do everything, like I do comedy and I do writing at the same time. So I don't know if you have this, John, but sometimes I'm like, is this a short story or is this a TikTok? It's a really weird psychological landscape to be in. Just like, is this a novel or is this a sketch? Podcast? Poem? Painting? Nobody knows.
Why not just a little bit of everything?
Yeah. Well, because it doesn't sell very well, as I learnt the hard way. But yeah.
Yeah. That's because most people you're dealing with out there are the types that follow the Kardashians too closely.
Yeah. I don't think we have that issue on this podcast. I think we've pretty much exclusively got an audience of weirdos. They're very well,
As it should be.
very well curated.
Yes.
Yeah. The kind of people that like Comic-Con would go, "You might be a bit too nerdy for this. Are you sure you wanna? You might get bored. You know, there's not enough niche references to stuff." Yeah, I love like the mix of people that I've got on this show. Because like last time I sold a book in person, what had happened is I got drunk at a cocktail bar and started chatting to a physicist, and just sold him a book there and then. And I was like, that's my audience. Unfortunately, it's really hard to find physicists because they're too busy changing the world, quite literally. In some cases, potentially turning it inside out. So like we've it's a great audience to have, because I had
So that's where you need to go instead of Comic-Con. Go over to the Hadrian Super Collider in Geneva and just start, hitting up everybody there to buy some books.
that's a good idea.
Everyone who's walking down the hallway, just be like, "Hey, I know that you're probably going to do something real spacey, but I need you for a second."
Yeah. I know you're doing some nerd stuff, but here I wrote this book where aliens talk in farts, and they're like, okay, they just call security. They've got a special number on the walkie-talkies just for if I turn up.
Hey, before you go discover another like electron or neutron or whatever, check out my book that talks about similar type stuff. Only it's funny.
Yeah. I would like to have like more highbrow comedy at some point. That said, there was a joke about Einstein's theory of relativity and who built the humans that was so niche only I understand it. So I was like, I don't count that as a loss. Like in a fairly massive book, I'm kind of okay with like one joke not being got by anyone, because anybody who doesn't get it, they won't even realize they've not got it. It'll just like pass them by. Like a breeze.
Is it still in there?
Yeah, it's
I'm
still
gonna
in
look
there.
out for it.
Yeah, it's about special relatives. But yeah, it's fun. It's the chapter where God goes to a strip club.
Oh my god, I'm so excited to read this fucking book.
You know what? I've just realised that it sounds really fun out of context. You know what I should do for adverts? I should just get people to try and just react to it in the street. I'm like, here, read this thing. Okay.
Man on
Just
the
one
street.
chapter.
Yeah. I've now, on YouTube, you two guys can't see it, but I've now finished the title of the book, The Cosmic Comedy Collection in Minecraft. The lettering is a bit off, but it's okay. It doesn't look too bad. Now I'm going to add the details in the middle. This is like Minecraft, Bob Ross, dark comedy, physics, book review, more comedy, maybe a poem in the middle if John feels up to it. It's all over the place. This is exactly what people like. This is the future of content. Who needs to choose what channel to watch? Watch all of them at once! Like David Bowie in The Man Who Fell to Earth. I've tried that, by the way.
Yeah.
It makes you feel violently sick. Don't watch multiple TVs at once. Don't do it. Don't do it, kids. So, John,
John, you did slime monsters, didn't you?
Yes, that was my
I need you to
contribute.
know the quote, "Don't get in a froth over nothing," had me in tears.
yeah, that was great.
I'm gonna say it for the rest of my life now.
Yeah. That is it's one of those ones that's like going to become a catchphrase, isn't it?
If I have
Hey,
anything to say about it, it will.
Yeah.
That's my goal in life, to create as many catchphrases as possible.
Mm.
I mean, I've got a while to catch up with The Simpsons, but I can get a start on it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys like that little catchphrase.
Yeah, it was great.
I told Jen, I was like, it's basically the story of what happens when you do absolutely everything wrong.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of the satire behind it. I took, like those campy, 50s sci-fi horror shows and thought, well, let's have fun with that and kind of go in that direction.
You put in there, you were like, this situation called for a selfless hero. Heroism coursed through his veins. And I was like...
Yeah, Doug was a little full of himself there.
A little bit.
I love stuff like that. I
It
always
was like Zach Brannigan.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. I was just about to say, like, I couldn't work out who it reminded me of. But like, I'm always reticent to say. I don't know if I've used that word correctly. Fuck it, I've got a master's degree in writing. I have just used that word correctly, and everybody else is wrong. Master's degree in arrogance as well, apparently. But yeah, but like, whenever you think, oh, this character reminds me of someone, I never want to say it to John because John's so original. I don't want to offend him, but he's always like, yeah, I get that, because it's like, yeah, it is like Zach Brannigan. But in a very John way.
Well, and I've watched a little bit of Futurama, so I guess it's inevitable something to rub off from there.
Well, yeah.
Well,
Not necessarily that, but like you're gonna have the same sense of humor because if you like Futurama, you really like it. It's one of those shows where like I've met people that hate it, and I personally don't think those people should be allowed to vote. But that's for a different podcast. That's when I'm on the Joe Rogan one. But yeah, Futurama's brilliant.
So
That's how I
when
am
they
with Archer.
the funny thing about Futurama is when they rebooted it for Hulu this last time,
Yeah.
I watched like the first episode of the reboot, and it was literally the entire episode was Futurama making fun of Hulu for bringing them back.
Yeah, they're
It was
fantastic.
hilarious.
But it reminded me very much of when Scrubs got bought back by I think ABC. And it didn't translate in the UK version because we didn't have the ABC logo on the screen. But in the American version, there's a bit where JD drops something and he notices a bit of dirt on the wall. And he points and he goes, "What's that ugly thing?" But the way it's filmed, it looks like he's pointing at the ABC logo. And like how they got that past them, I will never know. Absolutely brilliant television. So
Well,
much fun.
there was one thing I wasn't sure if anybody'd get it in my story, where I have them like singing a Rubber Ducky song to him.
That was my co-host's favorite part.
And it's actually based on. Have you ever seen Sesame Street with Bert and Ernie?
In the bathtub.
It's based on the Rubber Ducky song.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was crying. She was laughing so
Oh,
hard.
that's where that was. Man, that's took me back. It's like I got it, but it just didn't go in my head.
And true story, I actually came up with that insult towards a kid named Doug in middle school.
Nice.
Um,
Shout out to Doug.
Not
You got his-
coincidentally, we got in a fist fight.
Yeah. We could
He's gonna
invite
just
him.
randomly pick up the book and be like, "You son of a bitch!"
Yeah. That
You're
that
right
that
about
reminds me,
me.
John, and our next guest. Just bring the kid in. It's weird, like with like kids that you didn't get along with in school, because you can never imagine them getting older. And what's really funny is one of my school bullies died, so he actually never did get older. So there's that.
There's that.
I just saw the punchline and I was like, I'm stuck along the tracks to this. I'm gonna have to say it, otherwise it'll turn into a headache. Yeah, you like starts building up pressure in the back of your head. That's like what my writing process in this book felt like as well. Like there was bits where I thought, I don't know if I should make this joke, not because they were offensive or anything. I actually don't think any of the jokes in mine were like fruity, because they're more about science fiction and its tropes than anything else. I've never been the social commentary type. I don't think I'm social enough to have anything to commentate on. Do you know what I mean? It's like, how do you
It's
do
one of those
observational
things.
humor about society if you don't integrate with it?
You just never talk to people.
Yeah, I just go on stage as a stand-up and I go, people, those guys, what a load of dicks, walking around with their
Well,
bank
that's
cards.
why you do observational humor about aliens instead.
That's very
because
fair, yeah.
Nobody else has interacted with aliens, to your knowledge, and so
True.
you can just say whatever the hell you want about them.
Yeah,
We're
you
like,
can.
yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that, because that brings me on to another point, like the aliens as a metaphor for people, because like sci-fi comedy is really taking that whole thing that a lot of creative writing shooters say is like, oh, science fiction is a metaphor for the human condition, and it's really taking that and sort of turning it on its head, because it's not just, we're not critiquing society, we're just actively insulting it. Oh, there's a creeper next to me in Minecraft. Bet you're glad I'm in creative mode, because if you would have blown up this Cosmic Comedy Collection, I would have blown up your entire bloodline, you green son of a bitch. Go over there. Sorry guys. I've had a very traumatic experience with creepers on a live stream recently. Literally like 4 hours on a build and it just got detonated. But that's fine.
What a douche.
It's alright, I've built an automatic creeper farm to like punish them. So now like I just stand there and they just keep dying. It's brilliant. Minecraft's great because it allows you to be deeply, deeply sadistic, but in a wholesome way, which is fun for kids on YouTube.
Just dishing out life lessons,
Yeah.
but with blocks, you know?
It's an activity the whole family enjoy.
Yeah. I guess like
Murderous revenge.
to make a really vague and vaguely maybe cringe point, making sci-fi comedy these days feels like trying to make a circle in Minecraft. Like, people don't think it's possible, but it is if you look at it from, you know, far away enough. And it's like the way that sci-fi interacts with society and all the weirdness people do. Because like, John, you've got incompetent astronauts. I've got incompetent military people. There is actually sort of a kind of, should I call it a quasi-theme? I do have a master's degree. I'm going to call it a quasi-theme. That like runs underneath. That I have a master's degree, by the way, in case anybody didn't hear that before. It's a few seconds ago. But yeah, like...
You have a master's degree?
No.
Okay.
But, I actually do, but they've spelled my name wrong on the paperwork, so I never displayed it, and then I lost it in the house move, which is fine because I'm a very messy person. It would have probably turned into a placemat had I known where it was. I should ask for another one. But yeah.
Spelled correctly.
Yeah, spelled correctly. It's a degree in writing as well. It's just like an extra insult if they get your name wrong in that. It's like, I'd understand if it was like a degree in nursing or something. Because it's like, you know, I don't care how a nurse can spell as long as she knows which part of me is not okay to put holes in and which part of me is okay to put holes in. You know, that's what's important. Like, never waste your time correcting a nurse's grammar. That's what my uncle always said. Just made him up. But yeah, I forgot what my point was. Oh, sci-fi and stuff. That's what we're talking about. Sci-fi comedy. Yeah, people always act like science fiction can't be funny anymore, and I think I would like to blame my usual scapegoat, Marvel, because they have done to humour what they are to comedy what like a mallet is to a butterfly, really. Like they're just really taking it too far. And I can't get through any of the Marvel movies that have come out in the last few years. I really struggle with them. But people do find them funny, but I find the Cosmic Comedy Collection funny, so I think I'm not going to pretend it's a refined sense of humour for the finer folk. It's kind of just like weird zany humour for nerds, isn't it? How would you describe it, Rachel, actually?
Honestly, weird zany humor for nerds is kind of perfect. Because yeah, you're right. There's the people who like, you know, the jokes with rules. And I love chaos. So I like jokes with no rules. And so that's why reading yours specifically, because the aliens kept changing.
Yeah.
I loved that. Because every time I was like, hold on, what the fuck did I just read? Hold on. And then I had to go back and then I was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
And then that was one of those things where I was like, wait, is there a deeper meaning in this? Because, you know, enemies are always changing, especially in humanity and life when you're going through your day to day. And so the aliens kept changing. And I was like, you crafty son of a bitch.
Yeah, that one was more like a commentary on like how shifty like meme culture is, and how because of meme culture and the internet, we don't understand each other anymore. Like, people will just say the most bizarre stuff to each other, and they won't understand like what the other one's saying. I know, like, certain bits of American slang I struggle to keep up on. It moves so quickly, and we have like a slightly different slang machine in the UK. We're always like 2 months behind you guys. So like, you know, when people were saying about outfits going like, "Oh, she ate that up."
Yeah.
That took me about 4 months to realize it wasn't about people eating. And that's a weird thing, because like, that can actually be the cause of arguments. If people just have a basic misunderstanding, sometimes people can take a misunderstanding as you're actively ignoring me, where it's like, no, everybody speaks so damn fast now. And that's why I wanted to bring humor back into books, because it takes a while to read them. Sorry, I interrupted you now a little bit.
No, I tend to interrupt people constantly, so you know, I take it out, I can dish it. I didn't say that correctly, whatever. But anyway, so, and then I lost my train of thought. Son of a bitch. Oh, I was gonna say that I've been teaching myself French, because why the fuck not? So I've been teaching myself French, and I noticed that too. Like, okay, I'm gonna learn perfect, you know, proper French, and then I'm gonna travel to France again, and then no one's gonna know what I'm talking about, because everyone's talking in their day-to-day, you know, vernacular, and here I am like, you know, hello, how are you today?
Yeah. So yeah, it is a weird thing, that like being lost in translation with people. I love how you said you were going to French as well. I love those like little accidents.
Yeah, my bad.
There's a lot of humor to be derived from people misunderstanding people. I'm trying to think, like,
well, and
go on, John.
It's something that, I mean, just happens in life. I mean, I actually get annoyed by stories where there aren't misunderstandings. Like, they seem to have like these perfect conversations, orderly conversations. It's like, do you people actually get out and talk to anyone before you write the story?
Yeah,
yeah, there's like no interruptions. There's no, you know, it's a ping pong ball back and forth, back and forth. You know, everyone says the perfect thing, and it's conveyed well, and everyone understands everything, and it's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, I think you can get away with it sometimes. Like in my more serious stories, I kind of do that. If I'm talking about something real complicated, I'll have people like pause, and then they'll speak in short sentences, and they'll be quite clear. Just because if I have them making mistakes, the reader's just going to get a headache. But like, yeah, with silly stories, you've got so much leeway for like having more naturalistic conversation, because that's really where laughter comes from. It's when you get caught off guard. That's the only way you can make someone laugh, is to trip them up. But yeah, I actually got fired from a job in a nursing home recently for making old ladies laugh.
No.
Well, really, I was actually just tripping them up, but.
Oh my
God. What's your fun?
Yeah.
It's when he started to push them over that it became a little bit too far.
Yeah. No, I think the breaking point was when they discovered the scoreboard.
Oh my God.
It's like, you know, that Club Penguin game, Puffle Launch. If my sister
No.
listens to this podcast, I want to give her a shout out. She made me play this game called Puffle Launch when she was at school, because she wanted to get the high score. One day I was playing it, and it wouldn't let me go on the game, and I was like, why is it not letting me go on the game? And she come home dead upset and said to me, like, you can't play Club Penguin today. I can't let you play it. And I was like, why? What's happened? And she said, oh, there's a hack. The game's broken. I was like, oh, okay, game's broken. That's not true. What happened is she swore at someone and got banned, and didn't want me to tell her mum and dad. And it's like, she had this whole cover story that must have taken a lot of writing. There must have been a lot of like editing that went into this cover story. It was so funny. But I just love that. She's just absolutely like terrified she'd get in trouble, and she didn't get in trouble, but it was just so funny. I like you can, you know, getting in trouble for like saying stuff as well. That's another thing comedians seem to be worried about these days. Like I'm in a lot of like different comedy spaces, and there are people that go, "Oh, well, you can't make jokes about this and this anymore." And I think the Cosmic Comedy Collection is evidence that you can. You absolutely can. Because it's if it's well written, it's fine.
Well,
delivery
and
is
honestly,
everything.
people exactly.
Yeah, because you can't.
Honestly, people who are gonna get offended by certain types of jokes, they'll get offended no matter what jokes you tell.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a sense of humor.
Yeah, I had a really great experience at a stand-up night a few weeks ago where somebody came on stage before me, and because it was a mixed night, there was supposed to be like serious stuff downstairs, comedy stuff upstairs, but through means that I don't truly understand. I think somebody felt a bit more comfortable being upstairs because there was a smaller audience. So yeah, fair play to them. That is a good idea. And they came upstairs, but I don't think they knew right away it was going to be a comedy audience. So they come up and they did like a really serious poem, and because I booked first, and I don't get nervous about being the first person on stage, I actually prefer it, because then I feel like I can relax and enjoy the other comedians' stuff a lot more than if I'm thinking, am I on in 4 minutes, 2 minutes? You know, I hate that. Don't mind performing, enjoy performing. It's the waiting I don't like. So I was like, yeah, happy to go on first. But she went on before me, and she did a really serious poem about quite a serious subject. I'm not going to get into in this one because she's not on it, and I'd want to like hang out with her and ask her if I can talk about it first. But yeah, and I immediately went on stage and didn't do my jokes. I just did improv about what she was talking about for about 5 minutes, and she thought it was hilarious. And that's what's important, because it's like if the people that are kind of like, you know, they have experience of the subject matter that you're joking about, if they find it funny, then it absolutely doesn't matter if everybody else in the room's in a bad mood. Because like she found it funny. There was some people at the back that were like, oh, I don't know if you can joke about that. Like I got the look, and I thought, I know I'm in a good place when the person who's like experienced in the topic I'm talking about is at the front laughing really loud, and there's people at the back who look uncomfortable. That's kind of the area I'm always in as an artist. I'm happy to be there, mainly because David Bowie was in the same place as a musician, and I absolutely admire David Bowie for how relentlessly weird he was at all points in time. And nice as well, a nice guy. But yeah, that's a thing I wanted to ask about. John, did you have any like comedic inspirations? Like
my comedic inspirations, before it stayed on there way too long, I grew up being a huge fan of The Simpsons. Like
Yeah.
I would watch every single episode like until I could memorize all the lines almost. I mean, I loved Treehouse of Horror. I just all the classic Simpsons episodes I just really enjoyed. It was kind of my style of humor. And so I guess that's probably my comedic inspiration, is just going back to like that Treehouse of Horror,
Yeah.
you know, approach to like sci-fi and horror, and you know, just have you got a mix of the lowbrow humor, but also kind of the subtle, you know, layered humor. Like one of the things I found interesting that I read in an article a couple of years ago, and I actually went back and watched some of the Simpsons episodes to see if this was the case, and it was. Is they said that a lot of the writers, because they graduated, you know, from Ivy League schools, they'd throw in like highbrow jokes about math and physics and science in different episodes of The Simpsons.
Yeah, there's one where
And they're really, really subtle ones that if you're not paying attention, you don't catch. But if you pay attention to it, you get rewarded.
yeah, and what's fascinating about that I find is conspiracy theorists years later, they're like, oh, Homer's got like a mathematical proof on his chalkboard in this one scene, and they think it's like the answer to life, the universe, and everything. as written and decreed by the Illuminati, but it's really just one of the writers was a big nerd.
And they made a joke,
Yeah.
hoping somebody'd catch.
But you know what? Conspiracy theorists, perhaps not the target audience for jokes. Because they don't understand the concept of a fucking sphere. They're not going to understand the joke. Like, there's no point. There's no point trying. You know, one of the main things as a writer, know your audience. Like, absolutely.
Well,
I don't think I'm going to do gigs at like the Flat Earth Society anytime soon.
well, here's the problem with conspiracy theorists. That they misremember a movie quote and think it's evidence that we live in an alternate timeline now.
Yeah, I find that is kind of like a deluded level of arrogance, which I hinted at before earlier on in the podcast. If anyone's still listening, when I said like I have a master's degree, so I'm right and everybody else is wrong. That's a recurring joke in a lot of my material, because conspiracy theorists are literally like that. They're like, oh, I misread the Bernstein Bears when I was 3 years old and I literally fucking couldn't read. Therefore, I live in a simulation run by lizard people that eat children. I'm like, no. There's a lot of steps that you could have taken before the lizards that eat people. There's actually quite a lot of... You did a lot of legwork there to get to the lizards. Let's take a step back. Maybe you just couldn't read.
Maybe you were just 6 years old.
Yeah, and they're just like, nope, that's not me. I've always known how to read, even before I was born. It's like, okay, you're not. That's you know, it's crazy. Some people are just like insane. I will say though, I have met a few flat earthers in my life, and I've got a weird bias because people used to, edgy atheist YouTubers, my people when I was a teenager, they used to rip into the flat earthers all the time. I've met a few; they're actually all right people. But I will say the funniest flat earther video I've seen is a guy spends loads of money, like something like 12 grand, to prove that the Earth is flat with lasers, and at the end of the documentary, he runs the numbers and he finds out that the Earth is curved, and he just looks to the camera, and that look in his eyes, it's a deep sadness that is like he's lived his entire life has been a lie, but it just gets me every time. I love it. I shouldn't admit on YouTube that I've enjoyed the suffering of another man, but I just did, so it doesn't matter. Right? But you know what? There's a few Minecraft YouTubers that have enjoyed the suffering of other people, but that is a reference I'm not going to go any deeper into. Everybody, this is a wholesome. I don't know what type of podcast this is anymore. We're now looking at the book title as made out of Minecraft blocks, whilst talking to the first person to review the book and a co-author. That's the kind of podcast that we're in right now. It's weird, isn't it? Doesn't it feel weird? And also I have a cider, but you can't see it because it's a podcast. You have to imagine it. But yeah.
I know, I kind of wish that I could see the title of, the book on Minecraft.
Oh, I'll beam it to you on Instagram actually at the very same time we're podcasting. This is the kind of art that I like. It's like when you literally don't have the time to sit down. I love stuff like that. I absolutely live for art. I was like depressed a few years ago, and I realized that it was actually a really simple solution. I was just not doing enough weird shit. Like I was just going feral. Like if a husky stays inside, it will literally eat its own feet. That's like, I get to that stage really quick. Might have been partly why my first novel wasn't technically a novel, but a collection of kind of like a novel that got exploded and put back together by a psychopath. But it works. It works for me. It's my style. People seem to like it. Oh, Rachel's giving it a heart symbol on Instagram.
I did. I love it.
Got the heart symbol. Yeah, you missed the part where I beat a creeper to death, but it's okay. Anybody who's just listening to the audio, you can just imagine me beating a creeper to death. It's a little green creature.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch.
You should do a play-by-play recount.
Yeah.
Of the creeper beating.
The creeper beating.
This is where I take out his legs. This is where I lop off his head.
Yeah. You just have someone like Creeper Hater donated $500 to the stream, and they've just like got super chat, and it just says you should twist his head off, and you're like, okay, Creeper Hater, I'll do that right now. That's actually, I think I've just accidentally written a new comedy story. Oops. Oh well. John, do you want to go for another book? Another one.
Hey, I think you should. I've got, maybe I'll do a story about toxic snowmen that come to life and attack people.
Oh yeah, you could call it Revenge of the Woke Snowflakes.
John's gonna be very busy because he has the vegan dinosaurs, and now he has a killer snowflake snowman.
Evil snowflakes
You have
from
a
outer
lot.
space, yeah. I'm trying to make some slime monsters right now as well.
Ooh. I've got to try and pull up YouTube on my phone so I can see some of this stuff.
I'm sort of I'll beam you the link on Discord. I don't know if it'll go funny on the podcast, but I'll give it a go. I'm on Discord on two things at the same time. I wonder if I could actually be on two voice calls at the same time. I'm not going to try that while I'm live recording right now. Probably not the best idea. I'll just put it in the general. Yeah, it's in the general. That
I've
works.
got a sequel for your. I've got a sequel for your story.
Yeah.
Or now you have a different group of aliens that comes back, and instead of communicating through memes, they try and do trending TikTok challenges.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And that's how they try and conquer the Earth, is through trending TikTok challenges.
That is a good idea, and further evidence that you're a much nicer human being than I am, because when you hesitated then for a second, my brain filled in the gaps and thought, is he going to suggest that I come up with aliens that communicate via weird, obscure sex acts? and then I've just realized now maybe that's what all that probing stuff is. Maybe they're just trying to say hi. They might be just really, really
that's
forward.
How they greet people on their planet.
Yeah. That's
how they say hello.
That is exactly how they say hello. I'm gonna get another slime monster now. Oh, I'm so glad they've added honey to the game, because now I can have two different colours of slime monsters, and they can be shaking hands like all of those corporate seminars they give you in. When you get an office job, and they're like, if there's somebody different to you in the office, you should be friends and not be horrible to them. And you sat there like, I've just managed to get a job in this place. If I was an asshole, I don't think I would have got this far. Who is this for? You sit down and they're like, don't be an asshole. And I'm like, I already wasn't an asshole. I always take slight offense to them. I'm like, I already know how to not be mean. It's one of my favourite hobbies.
Is to just not constantly harass people.
Yeah, it's like when you go to the zoo and they're like, do not put your hands through the cage, and I'm just there like, I wasn't going to. But now I've got that...
Oh, Darwinism.
I've got that like, fuck you reflex, where if someone tells me not to do something, like if it's an authority like the government or like a zoo, and they're like, don't do this, I'm like, I'm going to do it. Which is, it will probably result in my demise, but it is a problem that I've accepted. It's just part of who I am.
Yeah,
well, that's something that future Philip can worry about.
Yeah, it is, exactly. It's like my friend Zach last night was... Sorry, go on.
I say, you don't care what future Philip has to deal with. You're just worried about present Philip.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, my friend Zach was talking to me last night, and he was telling me about, like, there's this cave near Nevada where somebody went missing years ago. It was like a famous UFO abduction case, because he said like he was genuinely afraid that he'd go missing, and he did, and people were talking about that for ages afterwards. And I just said, and then he said like there's certain places that you're not allowed to go. The government doesn't let you go there. And I said, you know what we should do? And he went, I know what you're gonna say. And I went, we should go there. We should totally go. And he's like, no, we don't go there because people go missing. And I was like, what if I'm different? What if I don't go missing?
What if I'm the one?
Here's another comedy story. What if the opposite happens? What if you go into the cave and you don't go missing, you go anti-missing, and two of you come back out of the cave?
Interesting.
And then there's a parallel universe where like, yo, where the fuck's Phil at? And I'm just there like skipping through a sunflower meadow holding hands with myself. Like, hey, so why did you? I'm just like chalking to him. It's all nice and innocent, and I'm like, so why did you leave your universe behind? Oh, I killed a load of people. What? And I'm like, oh, that's what the eye patch and the facial scarring is for. You're a trope.
You're like, I had just had enough. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, yes, I have.
Don't forget the goatee.
Yeah.
Because the evil universe, they have goatees.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's an interesting point because it's like all evil characters in like bad fiction have just visible disabilities. That's all it is. So does that mean that bad fiction writers think a goatee is a disability?
Yes.
I mean, it certainly is if you're dating. Definitely a handicap if you're out to, as I would quote somebody with a goatee, to pick up hot chicks. I'm gonna have to listen to this back later because we've had like 4 different ideas for comedy sketches here. It's like just a material farm. This is why I'm gonna like stay in Utah for a bit because they've got a recording studio and I'm just gonna go absolutely batshit wild in there, just making shit up because we're doing the whole like they're building cars and in the background I'm gonna try and build the same car at the same time out of Lego whilst insulting everybody.
Oh my god.
And maybe juggling.
I'd
like to learn to juggle. That would be cool. So I'm just gonna go batshit crazy when I go to America. I think that's what America's for, isn't it? That's why we sent some of our like ancestors there, just to kind of get rid of them. Same with Australia.
That's why you sent the Puritans there.
Yeah.
Just to give you a place to go vacation.
Yeah. Like we need somewhere to send all these nut jobs.
Just like you sent all the criminals to Australia.
Yeah. It's what I find really weird is we sent a
all
load
the
of like
crazy people to America and all the criminals to Australia. And
yeah, like we sent all the criminals to Australia. Probably the odd lunatic or maybe like a teenager that stole a loaf of bread at one point. So there was some people that like didn't deserve to be there. Maybe there's some people that did, but I always find, you know, alternate history books, they should be a bit weirder. Like, oh, what if JFK wasn't assassinated? No, what if we sent people to Australia and within 6 months they domesticated the spiders and returned to Britain with a spider army? You know, that would
yeah,
be
that would be better.
yeah.
That's horrifying.
Bloody hell, governor! There's spiders in me missus. It's all spiders all the way down.
So, speaking of spiders, when you come to Utah, if you go out to the Great Salt Lake,
Yeah.
out along the shoreline in different places, there's like nests of just dozens of spiders.
How big?
They're reasonably huge.
Oh Christ!
I mean, that's not something you want to go like, here, spider, come here, let me pet you, type thing.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be trying to pet spiders anytime soon. I found a spider in my wardrobe before, and I was like, "What the hell are you doing in there?" And then I got rid of it with a vacuum cleaner. And then there was another one, and I was like, "Oh no." I've now got a bereaved spider in here. I've got like the fucking John Wick of spiders in my wardrobe. And so obviously I did the right thing. I killed that one as well without mercy. But yeah, I was like, where do they keep coming from? And then I realized there's like a hole in my ceiling, and I think they're only like the really long, gangly ones that you get in like houses. It's just a little house spider.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they were just everywhere. I forgot what I was gonna say. I think I had something that I thought was funny, but I'm not gonna get around to it, I don't think. So I'll let you guys change the subject.
You know, in Las Vegas, we would have. I lived there for way too long, but we had scorpions just everywhere. You would walk outside. We would have them in the house. We would just be walking along and then look up, and on the wall is a giant scorpion, just hanging out.
I don't know if I'd mind scorpions. I've never met one, so I don't know. We might not get along. But I know, like, hissing cockroaches I don't mind. They're cool. Mice I'm fine with, like rats, stuff like that. Bats. All my family are scared of moths, and we get absolutely huge moths here. And I just catch them, like... And if I go for a walk at night, moths will just, like, decide they want to live in my beard. So I'll just come home and I'm like, okay, that's an absolutely huge creature. It's just made a nest inside part of me. This is fine.
You have to get one of those nets that you put over your beards to work in like the food industry and stuff, but instead it's just to repel moths.
Oh, you've just given me a horrible flashback to working in like a cafe. They made me want, like, they said that, oh, you have to wear this. It was yellow, like it was stained to hell, so it looked like someone had died wearing it. And I'm like, can I not have a new one? They said this is a new one, and I said I can see her foundation on the rim of the hat. It's like someone vaporized a woman while she was trying to make a hot chocolate. I'm not wearing it. It was awful. It's not even funny. I just needed to get it out of my system. Such a greasy,
that's awful.
Evil hat. Oh, there is a funny bit. Don't worry about it. I've remembered a funny bit. There was once. It is gross. We had a coffee machine, and once they were going to do like a routine clean because they had like the health inspector guy come in, and they said, oh, there's loads of beans down the back of the coffee machine, and somebody climbed on top of the coffee machine. It was like, the building was like 10-20 feet tall, so we were in like kind of a mezzanine floor of a supermarket. The coffee machine wasn't that big, so somebody got a stepladder to dust the top of it, and they said, why is there beans on top of the coffee machine? He tapped the top of the coffee machine. All of these quote-unquote beans decided to fly away.
Oh my god.
It was fucking millions of blue bottle flies, and it's like, I've never had a visceral reaction where I felt like I was going to puke just seeing something, but seeing that swarm of flies, I was like, yep, yeah, it's gonna happen. It's absolutely horrible. And then the health inspector came, and they just like told me, because I was the new kid, they were like, don't bring it up. And they were like, if you feel like talking about it, go outside and have a smoke. I was like, I don't smoke, and they went, well, you can start. Like they were that desperate to cover it up. Oh yeah, it was so gross. Geez. Such a gross place. It was like a major supermarket here as well. I'm not going to mention which one because they'll probably email me and go, hello, we'd like to ask for your opinion on that thing that happened 15 years ago. No thanks. No thanks, I prefer my slander to be anonymous. Yeah.
So I lived in Louisiana for a while, and they have like tons of fire ants down there. Like you go onto like any grass anywhere, and you stand in place for just 4 or 5 minutes, and you'll have fire ants crawling up your legs. And it got so bad that when I came back to Utah, like for the first few months, whenever I'd go out onto grass, I'd get like these tingling sensations on my calves because my brain thought that there were fire ants crawling up my legs and there weren't.
Yeah. Oh man, that sounds horrifying. This is what I love about John, is he'll tell you like the darkest thing ever, but he'll say it with a smile. Like he's always laughing, like there's nothing can stop this guy. Apart from shit memes on Twitter.
At a sport. I did that at a basketball game I was covering the other night. I was telling like these dark things and laughing the whole time, and the other writers are like, "Why are you laughing? That's not funny."
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to be reassuring.
Yeah. I love that.
They're like, why are you telling us these stories? We have to drive home in the dark.
Yeah, I do that with like alien abduction stories. People always get that from me with like the alien abduction stories. So I just love them. I read one the other day where people were saying all of the pretty much, not verified, but the stuff that the government's admitted. Yeah, we don't know what that is. It's all footage of UFOs, and they don't come from space in the footage. They like come out of the ocean, or they come out from behind mountains. And somebody was saying, well, they're little grey humanoids. Don't you think it's weird that aliens are humanoid? Considering all the different forms they could have taken, isn't it a bit suspicious that they look like us? And so there's this theory going around the UFO community that they're the original humans. At some point they went into like a cave system, and they found a really big cave system. They kind of lived in there for a few centuries. They developed the technology in there, or maybe they got the technology, reverse engineered it, like we might have done at Area 51. So maybe a spaceship landed like thousands of years ago, and these guys reverse engineered it. We came out of Neanderthals. They went the other way. They got shorter, thinner, greyer, and got really like high tech. And after that, they became sort of like an isolationist society. And they live inside the Earth, and they only ever come up every now and again to like just go about, do some science, and that's when we bump into them. And I found that something about that just deeply unsettling. The idea that the aliens might not be in space; they might be right underneath our feet, because there's enough room down there. There is enough room, and it's so weird. And I love the idea of that. For like, obviously, I've incorporated ideas like that into the Earthloop trilogy, but I'm thinking for the next comedy stories I do kind of want to get those more serious conspiracy theories. Well, not even conspiracy theories. I don't know if it's right to call them that because they're not justifiably false yet. Those theories, like, and try and make humor out of those. Because this idea of cave creatures is just like that could be. There's a lot of fun to be had there.
So if you like the concept of aliens living in caves,
yeah,
without giving away a bunch of spoilers, you'd enjoy Hollow Planet.
Yeah, I know. I need to read it.
I did write about that concept in Hollow Planet.
I know. I've still not got around to reading it. I do actually own it. It's one of 3 ebooks that I own. There's that. Yeah. Yeah, because John does serious stuff as well. He's more than capable of being a serious guy. He's very good at it.
That's so interesting too. Like, the smart, quote unquote, aliens, the original humans are just underneath the earth, being like, those people up there. Look at their shenanigans.
It's like we're just the upstairs neighbors.
Right.
And they're like they come up and they make a few of us disappear every now and again, but our governments are to punish us, but our governments are so incompetent they just don't notice that people are going missing.
They're just exasperated down there.
The conspiracy theorists are like, the aliens have killed 52,317 people, and the government's like, no, those people were benefits cheats, they were fake identities, and one of them's like, I've got pictures of them, they're right here. We've got pictures of the spaceship taking them. And the government's like, no, don't see it. If we can't tax it, it doesn't exist. They're just like completely ignorant to it. But
you need that line in one of your stories. If we can't
yeah,
tax
I know.
it,
I said it, and I was like, I reached for the pen. I've learnt now. That was fucking solid gold. You can literally hear me writing it. But yeah, I've come up with a new short story while we were just talking there. I have to write this down. Why they like. Right, okay. So right, this idea. I'm gonna let you. How about you two have a conversation? I'm gonna try and invite some total strangers onto the stream. I actually know these guys, but they don't know anything about the book, so it could be funny.
Ooh.
Dun 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 dun.
Dun dun dun.
It's gonna be absolutely chaotic in here. Where's my Discord? I'll get. Yeah, so I was going to ask you a really stupid question then, Rachel. It's absolutely stupid. I'm not going to ask you.
Oh,
I was
come
I was going to
on.
ask you what your favourite story in the book was, which is just going to mean that I'm going to wind up having a fist fight with AJ, who has already dressed up as me in the past. It would feel weird, especially considering the sexual tension.
I need to know how do you pronounce his last name?
Pagan.
Okay, so I have been saying it right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's Aja Pagan.
I was like, no one's corrected me yet, so hopefully this is right.
Yeah.
Well, and if he's not here to correct you, that's his fault.
Yeah, no, they were all wonderful. They were all wonderful stories, and I have bits that are my favorites of each.
Yeah.
That was very diplomatic. So.
What's this?
That's the right answer.
That is a good answer. I love that. I was just like, right. So I don't know if the guys are going to join. There's only 2 of them left on that call anyway. But I'm gonna spoilers for the Cosmic Comedy Collection 2, or perhaps Who Built the Humans 2, which I'm tempted to call Who Killed the Humans, because it's got a really apocalyptic edge to it, and that's a much better book title anyway.
Hey, I like that, and it fits with the theme. Who built the humans? Who killed the humans?
Yeah, there's also a cryotech firm in Earthloop called Who Chilled the Humans. Rachel's just shaking her head. I
There you
literally heard your head turn side to side then. Right. Fantastic. That's the kind of joke you get a slight chortle but also disapproval. Like I live with
That's
my
the
mum.
best kind of comedy.
Yeah, I live with my mum at the moment. That's most of my material. She's like, that's funny, but I'm not going to laugh at it because it's wrong and you're sick in the head. Like, my sister came up with something that I've actually used in my adverts for comedy before, where she said, "You're wrong, but you're not wrong." As in, like, I might be politically wrong, but empirically, scientifically, I'm correct. This is like
Your mom says she's like, you're funny, but you're sick in the head, and you're like, well, I didn't get there myself, so here
yeah,
we go.
pretty much. Like, her sense of humor is darker than mine. She's just like really sneaky about when she lets people know about it. Like when she broke up with
Strategic.
yeah, like my dad was a bit of an asshole, and when she broke up with him, she did miss him, and we went to an IKEA, and she was walking around, and she was like, asked me and my sister, she went, "Do you ever miss him sometimes?" And I pointed at a lamp, and I went, "Look, Mum, it's you," and she went, "Oh, because I light up your life." And I went, "No, read the label," and the lamp was called Stockholm. And yeah, that went well. That went down about as well as it just went down on this podcast. Yeah. It's funny now, but at the time she was like, too soon. It was literally like a week after they broke up, and I was like, Stockholm Syndrome humor. But yeah, I don't have any chill. If there's a joke, I'm like, well, I might forget the joke, so I'm gonna just say it now. Which is probably why I've never been invited to any funerals. Actually, now I think about it. Also, doing the killing yourself kind of makes you a bit like unwelcome. So there's that as well. But anyway, alright, okay, back onto Cosmic Comedy Collection 2. So aliens living in caves instead of living in space, and my immediate thought was a line of dialogue. Is that why they like anuses so much?
Gosh.
I just thought, that is such an awful idea that's like, you know when you come up with an idea that's so awful it becomes good again, I'm like, this is like a 3-book trilogy right here. That could be the big reveal at the end of like the next, what is it, James Patterson crime novel. It's James Patterson that's the crime writer, isn't it? He's in all the supermarkets. I don't know. I don't read books. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's the one that has his name on the book cover, and then you have the co-author just in slightly smaller letters underneath him, who actually wrote the book, and he gets the credit.
It's such a weird
like all
thing.
the way at the bottom of the page on the inside.
Yeah, I wish people did that with their sex lives. Like a guy's like will just say, "Oh yeah, so my girlfriend we had a great time last night," and then a little subtitle pops up and it goes, "He lasted 37 seconds and she spent the rest of the evening with the washing machine." Not a
I
sexism
wanted
thing, by
Jen
the
to
way.
do editor's note.
Yeah, if anybody's listening and wondering if that was sexism, no, I was talking about her pleasuring herself using the vibrations of the washing machine. Glad to clear that up for anybody listening. And this is why my channel isn't monetized.
Wait, are there people that wouldn't have gotten that though?
There are people that would see washing machines and immediately associate with them with women in a way that I wouldn't, and they'd take it the wrong way. Well, obviously you wouldn't, because you've got a sense of humor, but you know what people are like on YouTube. Some of them are just like, I'm offended by this for reasons I don't really understand.
Anything to become upset.
Yeah. I had a day off work today, so I've decided to be offended.
Professional rageaholics.
Yeah, I had someone comment on my TikTok the other day and they went, "You have too much free time," and I said, "You have too little if you can't spend 30 seconds being silly on the internet." And I think I made a valid point. It's like, yeah, you should have the time to do stupid shit, and you shouldn't be shamed for doing stupid shit. We need stupid shit. Humans have always done dumb shit,
Yeah.
which is why I've really wanted with this project. I'm looping it back. I'm controlling myself. We're looping back. It's why I really like the idea of bringing comedy back into sci-fi. Because I don't think anybody... Maybe I'm just incompetent, John, but can you think of anybody that's like done a project like this in recent memory? Like just sci-fi comedy, not just sci-fi, but sci-fi comedy by multiple people, because I can't think of one.
As far as like books go, I can't think of anybody really recent. At least anybody that's like widely published. I mean,
Yeah.
the last like widely published sci-fi author that really had a more comedic bent or dark comedy bent I can think of is like Douglas Adams or Kurt Vonnegut, or But I mean, how long ago were they?
Yeah, that is an interesting point, because I've been compared to Douglas Adams before, which is insane, and I'm always like, I don't think that's a fair comparison. Like, I don't think I'm that good yet, and I think if I started thinking I was that good yet, then you run into the issue where you think, oh, I'm just going to stay where I am. So I always need to think, all right, I could do better at this kind of thing. But yeah, it's really interesting.
I think you honestly arrive as an author when you stop being compared to like authors that before your time.
Yeah.
And like newer authors start becoming compared to you.
Yeah, definitely. And that's like what I'd like.
I mean, that's one that for me it switches. The switch flips,
Yeah.
Or instead they're saying, oh, Philip Carter's like Douglas Adams, then they say that random author X is like Philip Carter.
Yeah, that's true. I need
I
to
wonder
get
how
something.
that would feel.
I imagine it'd feel pretty weird. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Because
I think I'd feel bad for the other guy.
being compared to you.
Yeah, I'd be like, well, that's he's got
It would
a lot
be
of keeping
cool
up to do.
on
I'm
one
sexy
hand,
as
but it'd
hell.
be strange on the other.
Yeah, it would be weird.
Like it'd feel flattering at one, to be oh they're comparing this person to me. All that that's cool, and then at the same time it's like, well, why are they comparing them to me? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? I don't know how to feel about this.
Yeah, because when I first got that comparison, I was like really happy with it. But people are going to be upset with me for this. I don't actually enjoy Douglas Adams. And I think somebody clocked it for me a few years ago. It's not that I don't like it. It's that when I'm reading jokes, my brain wants to write jokes, so I can't concentrate on them. So I can't really read comedy in the same way other people can, because I'm always thinking about comedy myself already. So it kind of feels like I get like overwhelmed by it. So it's really weird. So when somebody compared me to Douglas Adams, like back in 2019, I told them, I was like, oh, thanks. And then like I admitted I'd not actually read any. I'd read a bit, but I'm always like one of those people that rounds down when it comes to experience. So like if I've read like half a book, I'll just say that I've not read it, because
Right.
all the good stuff might have been at the second half. So I can't really say, oh yeah, I've read that book. I put it down halfway through and they're like, oh, but it's a Stephen King novel, so it didn't start until the last page. Up, and,
Just ignore the previous 1,000 that came before it.
up until then, it was like, you know, character development for a character that on the last page gets stabbed violently to death by the antagonist, Stabby McStab. But yeah, like, I wouldn't want to pretend that I knew more about a subject, so I was like, oh, I've not read that much Douglas Adams. Then I remembered that I actually had in high school, and that I did enjoy it, but since I've got into writing comedy myself, it kind of feels like maybe it's distracting. There's something about it that just like takes me out of the flow. It's kind of like David Bowie's music. I absolutely love David Bowie. I can guess the name of any David Bowie track from the first half a second of audio. Even the live ones, I can tell them by the applause of the audience. You know, I really like David Bowie, but I don't listen to his music when I'm writing because it's too good. I accidentally type the lyrics. It gets in my head. So that's like part of my writing process is trying to like actually switch off and concentrate less, which is probably really terrible advice, but it works for me. Just like completely switch off. So yeah, I don't think I read that much comedy. I like Frankie Boyle's audio stuff. I've seen him do stand-up live recently. It was really good. When it comes to like reading comedy, I'm writing so much at the moment, most of which I'm probably not going to publish because like whether or not it's good enough, that's kind of a private decision. And a lot of the time with jokes, I'm like, I enjoyed it. Maybe that's all it needs to do. It's kind of like a poem. You know, not all poems should be performed on stage. Some of them are quite personal for people and stuff like that. So I'm kind of the same with comedy, where I think I don't know if this is necessarily going to be interesting to an audience. But I've got like a band of people behind me at the moment that are like, you should read it out anyway. And I'm like, yeah, but it's one of them things. But yeah, I forgot what we were talking about. Where were we? Got carried away building this Minecraft moon.
Not seeing comedy being in sci-fi books these days.
Oh yeah, it's completely gone, isn't it? There's a lot of sex and lasers though. That's kind of like the thing at the moment. A lot of sexy lasers.
I think it's like you have a trend right now, and I mean you see it with a lot of like the limited series, TV series, and that, where everything has to be dark and gritty and dystopian, and it's like depressing. You know, it's like that mood. You know, everybody's broken, everybody's failure, and
it's almost like we're trying so hard to make sure that everyone is seen and make sure that no one feels alone in their struggles, that we've forgotten how to enjoy things. Like entertainment is not entertainment anymore.
That's true. It's just moral posturing.
I mean, there's a point where if it's too much like real life, then it's not really fun anymore.
Yeah.
And there's a time and a place for both, you know, you want that.
100%. Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I did not start this podcast today thinking like we'd make a really cool point on like culture. But I'm really glad that we have. Because yeah, definitely there's, I felt that, but not necessarily wanted to articulate it on the podcast because I worry people think I'm too grumpy. But I do think there's a lot of, I'm a bit in the poetry scene as well. Like I don't perform that often anymore, but I noticed there was like a lot of, I will call it moral posturing. There was a lot of people that would get on stage and they you get you 4 minutes to perform. They'd spend 3 of those minutes listing all the causes they cared about. My issue with that is that we'd be in a room of 8 people, and all of those 8 people, including myself, would agree with those causes. So it's like, who are you? We're not changing the world here. Like, maybe we should just join a march instead of read this. So there's that interesting dynamic I find where the performance kind of becomes, there's too much of the writer in the story, I think, these days with stuff. So people will put their own personal opinions in it. And I like the difficult part of writing where like I've written characters in some of my books that are total bastards. And I found some of them difficult to write because they're like, some of them are genuinely unpleasant, or some like horrible stuff will happen. But I've been in workshops where people have said, well, if you write a character who's racist, you're a racist. And I think that is delusional.
Yeah.
That is fully delusional. I can't put it politely. That's insane. That's like saying, oh, Philip, if you write a book about an alien, you're literally an alien. No. No, I'm not going to allow that. That's completely insane. And like a lot of people that are able to write about that subject in any way are usually the victims of it. So it's like you're silencing the victims of stuff by pretending to care.
Well, and honestly, when you have those people that say that oh, you can't write this type of character, or you're racist, sexist, whatever. I mean, you're kind of boxing in an author from actually being able to tell an effective story, because I mean, the reality is you have people that are like that in the real world, and and your characters have to confront that stuff in stories sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Or it's not authentic, it's not real.
Yeah, and it's like really,
you know, if you have like this situation, this world setup where it's, you know, you try not to offend any group whatsoever, what do you have in the end? It's just a boring slop of nothingness.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Rachel?
I agree 100%. I take umbrage with people who say that you can only write what you know, in terms of, you know, there's a lot of things going around where male authors can't write female characters, or where, you know, people of certain ethnicities cannot write characters who are not of their same. And I read a book about a serial killer the other day. Like, I had no problem identifying with the serial killer, but also I'm not a serial killer. You know what I mean? Like, there's a level of, you're missing that whole aspect of humanity, and not to go into the, you know, the concept of never mind. But yes, you should be able to enjoy things that are not specifically your experiences, and I just want to enjoy stuff again, man, you know?
Yeah, well, I hope our book has helped you do that.
It did, because it was, I mean, comedy, I feel like itself is kind of the last frontier. You know, everything else has been so, I'm going to use the term dumbed down for lack of a better term, but it's been so, you know, ran through so many filters that comedy itself is, it's kind of like that last bit that hasn't.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, you can tell, like, especially with some of the traditionally published offerings that you see now, where they've run through the filters, like you say, until it's like, it's almost like a paint by numbers approach to storytelling. It has to check every, and you can recognize the boxes immediately, genre, which boxes they need to check off for each story. To make sure everybody's included, nobody's offended, and it's like, and by the time they get done checking off all the boxes, they forget to actually tell a story that anybody cares about, and or write a book that's going to be remembered 1 year later after release.
Yeah,
it's just cookie cutter at this point. It's the same, you know, you're using the same terms to describe the same situations to make sure that the same people are not pissed off about it.
Yeah, definitely.
And who wants to read that? It's the same book. Like, they'll have one book, and then it'll be, you know, fantasy, and then they'll have the same story in, you know, space, and then they'll have the same story in, like, the 1600s, and then the same one. It's the same story, different genre, basically.
Yeah, I got that, like, when I was at uni. One of the professors said, basically, you know, there's this theory that there's only 7 stories, and they get retold. And I disagreed with that, and maybe a few people thought it was arrogant of me to disagree with that. But I think if the universe is functionally infinite, at some point, maybe culture's suffocating right now, but at some point, we become an interplanetary species, we might encounter new realms of ways to think about stuff that will inspire a whole new type of storytelling. Because for me, it's probably why I got into science fiction. It's just who I am as a person. Writing a story, telling a joke is actually a way to explore something. So when somebody says, "Oh, that joke is offensive," that actually, ironically enough, that's one of the few things that offends me. Because I think that, yeah, offense is a deeply personal thing. I can't actually control who is and isn't offended, because there are people that get offended by a story being bland. So if you try really hard, if you write a list of all the different types of people in the world, and you think, I'm not going to write this about them because they might be upset, there's going to be people that are in those groups that say, you've written a character that's similar to me, but that character's really fucking boring. And then you have to reply to them and go, well, I made that character boring because I didn't want anybody to think I was prejudiced in any way, shape, or form. So I completely tore the soul out of all the characters that look like you, just in case. And it's like really, really strange thing, because I've had people with Who Built the Humans. One of the first messages I got about it on Instagram, somebody said, wow, you've written a female character really well. And I thought, holy shit, that's a compliment and a half. As a male writer, you're like, right, okay, that's good. And she's like, how did you manage it? Because, and she, I won't say which authors, but she listed off authors that she followed for a long time, like famous authors, and she said they couldn't do as good a job. And I just said to her, the trick is you write a human being that just so happens to be a woman.
Yes.
And it's exactly the same.
That
it's
is
like,
perfect.
It's like you write a human being who just so happens to be disabled, or just so happens to be a Chinese time traveler with a robot arm. And then, you know, and people are like, yeah. Small community to
that's
offend.
Honestly,
but, yeah.
the approach I take with the characters is I think of them as a human being, or you know, I just think of them as a person, and the everything else is just kind of background detail.
Yeah,
you know?
it like becomes incidental, doesn't it? It's like it's. Go on.
We are like humanity is fallible. Like we're not perfect, and when you put all of these rules and stipulations on creativity, I mean, writing and music and art, and we used to be the rule breakers, you know what I mean? Like we were the ones that were rebelling against everything, and now we have so many rules put on us that are completely contrary to the human condition. We are not perfect all the time, and you know, we make mistakes and we do all of these things, and then you have someone on TikTok being like, well, she was kind of a bitch, and why is she so dependent upon a man? God, relax.
Oh god, I hate that in stories. Like, I had a guy trying to get me to read one of his books a while ago, and he was like, somebody I knew on Instagram, and he was like, oh, I've read Who Built the Humans, would you mind reading my book? And I was like, okay, thanks for reading Who Built the Humans. Wasn't much of a fan about, you know, him turning it into a transaction, because like I said before, I've got a big fuck you reflex, but it just felt, it was quite uncomfortable, because he was like, I like it, and he's kind of implied that he'd write a good review of it, but it was sort of like dependent on whether or not I read his book. And I was like, you know, just about getting into comedy. I was just
of that too.
Yeah, I was just finding my
because you have indie authors that will try and do like that you know, quid pro quo review swap, where they want you to give them a review, a positive review, and they'll give you a positive review. And the problem with that is a lot of times their books are completely awful. You don't really want to give them a positive
I love
review.
you, John. That's brilliant. Thank you. I've not had that experience yet, because I just tell people, look, I'm not going to read this. I don't have the time. Because I'm just crazy. I do so much random
did it
shit.
when I first started.
Yeah.
Like, because I didn't know any better. I like first 2 or 3 reviews I ever got were like, you know, like that. But then I read their books and I'm like, this is trash. I don't want to give them 5 stars. I don't want to give them 2 stars.
That's brutal.
And it's like you're almost painted into a corner, because it's like, well, if I give them an honest review, do they retaliate against me?
Yeah.
And
Well, they
and I
definitely
and I
do.
started. And that's why I found out later in the midst of the author community and writing community is that you actually have that happen where somebody gets a bad review and they retaliate on social media, and it's
Yeah,
like, nah, I don't want to deal with that. That's just so now if I get like the quid pro quo type stuff, I'm like, no, not interested. Go away.
I have such a hard time with that too, because who wants to earn stars like that, or who wants to have good reviews like that? Like, I want to have good reviews because I wrote a masterpiece, because I'm fantastic. I don't want to,
yeah,
I'll be nice if you're nice.
yeah, absolutely can't.
Yeah,
stand
well,
that.
and it's phony. It's disingenuous, and it actually misleads the reader, because then it's like, well, okay, I looked at this person and they gave her a good review of this book, but then I go over and their book is the one that they gave a good review to is now giving her a good review of their book. Do I trust them, or are they telling the truth, or are they just kind of colluding?
Yeah, there's also the point, like, I've not got like millions and millions of readers. I've got like a few hundred, and if I said, "Hey guys, I've just read this book by named author. It's really bookalicious. You should read it today," and they read it and it's the worst fucking thing imaginable, they will then think, "Oh, his opinion's shit, so he thinks bad books are good books." And then in the future, when I tell them, when I tell them that my book is a good book, oh, guess what? They'll remember that I'm a complete fucking idiot. They'll go, "Oh, that guy's a moron. I'm not going to listen to him whether his book is good or not," because he thought Alien Fucker Express was the best book ever written. It clearly wasn't, and it's like that's something.
It's a 1 star all the way.
Yeah, I don't think I could review another author's book, to be honest. I don't think I could do it.
So that's one thing that Jen and I had to have a discussion about too, because so obviously I said before that we're kind of crude when we're by ourselves, so we'll be like, "God, that book was fucking awful," like, did that author even know what they were talking about? But we also don't want to be dicks, so like we had to have the conversation of like, okay, so how do we handle books that we don't like? And my go-to now is if you ever hear me say it's not for me, that means I was not into it.
Yeah.
But we also we try and be very objective, especially if we don't like the book. I'll say things like, if you're into books such as this, or if you like concepts such as this, then you would like this book.
Yeah, that's a really good way of doing it.
But it wasn't for me.
That is a really good way of doing it.
I think that's a fair approach to take.
Yeah.
It's my
because there's always...
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
You're good. I was just gonna say it's my worst pet peeve when people it's going around right now, especially with authors of color, where people will write a review and say, "I just couldn't identify with it." Ugh. And I hate that. God, I hate that. I hate that so much. Like I said earlier,
I don't understand black people, so I didn't understand this book.
Exactly. It's such crap.
There's further evidence that you can always trust me to say the thing nobody else really wants to say. But
there's something that I hate it when I see a review, and I'll use an example from a review I got on BookBub for Alien People, where they gave me a bad review. And it's like, whatever, but in the review, the reason they gave me the bad review was, "Oh, the characters are angry all the time, needs editing." And I'm like, why does it need editing because the characters are angry?
Yeah,
I don't get that.
That's garbage.
It's like it's nonsense, because a character showing a specific emotion you don't agree with doesn't mean that the book's written poorly. It just means you didn't like it.
Yeah. That's a difficult distinction for a lot of people, though, and that kind of goes back to the arrogance of, I didn't understand this, or I've misremembered this detail, so the universe is wrong. I think that's the real epidemic that we've got in the arts scene. Is we've got people that are like, they think they're the bastions, the gatekeepers of all that is well and good, and then on the other end of it, you've got
And if it doesn't match, check off their personal checklist of boxes that it needs to check. Well, then it's poorly written. It's written wrong.
yeah,
You know, it isn't just, oh, well, it isn't to their taste, whatever.
I had that.
No, it means
when I
that
was
author terrible.
Yeah, I had that when I was at uni, where there was like we had a creative writing craft book given to us at one point, and there was like a line in it that said, "A good science fiction story always has a beeping computer," and I just like it. I remember at the time thinking the only beeping computer this author's gonna see is their fucking heart monitor as I turn it off. Just like, that was the beginnings of my evil. That was my Walter White becoming Heisenberg moment, reading a short story collection so bad that I thought about killing a person. It's like this is the worst advice ever. I'm actually going to pray for the downfall of this person. I'm gonna communicate with the creator of the universe to orchestrate this person's downfall. Rachel, I don't know if you did have more to say about it, but that idea of not identifying with a character I thought was really interesting. Have you got more to say about it?
I think the only thing that I really have to say more about that is I think that there are a lot of people that are reviewing books or who have the idea that they want to become a book reviewer that don't know anything about books. In that, there's more to it than just not being able to identify with a person. And we all have situations where we can identify with something. Okay, so I may not be we'll just take the serial killer thing because why not? I may not do that, but I have been incredibly angry, or I have been incredibly hurt, or I have been incredibly, whatever.
Yeah.
So I can understand that. You know what I mean? Like, there's always a bit of our experiences that we can bring to another story, but there's more to books than just that. And as you guys both said before, one thing, a character's arc does not the story make. You know what I mean? There's world building and the setting, and there's the tone, and there's, not only the story arc, but the character's story arc, and there's so much more to it. And I see a lot of reviews that are just based on the dumbest stuff, like the likability of a character, or whether you like dragons, or just the most surface level stuff.
Yeah. That reminds me, I need to finish my parody book about that. It's called Dragon Shaggers Deluxe Part 3. There isn't a Part 1 or 2, by the way. I just want the people on Amazon to think it was popular enough to warrant a Part 3.
I like that.
I'm sure it's against the advertising standards, but as you know, John, I don't give a single fuck. It's gonna happen. But yeah, it's really interesting because I mean, I feel like I bring this up way too much, but you guys haven't heard it, and probably the people who are listening on the podcast haven't heard it. I had an experience in a workshop once where somebody else in the workshop said they found my story problematic because there were no black characters in it. Okay, I want you to guess the race of the person that said that.
White.
Yeah, she was white as hell. She made me look tan.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's just. And what really got me is that one of the characters in the story was black. The thing is, when I write stories, I don't often have characters that walk into a room and go, "Hi everyone, it's me, Black Steven, your favourite black friend who's black and does black people things." And it's like, that's kind of the story that I think she wanted me to write. And I'm like, he was literally, the guy's just, I'm not saying it's a good story, because he's literally just a guy doing his homework in college. That was pretty much the whole story. So at no point did I feel it necessary to point out that he was black. Do you know what I mean? It's
yes, he is a man of color, but he's just a dude. He's just a dude in the story.
Yeah,
I'm not making it a
Exactly.
point to make it a thing.
yeah. There's a scene in
It's
the
it's a background detail. It's just it's something that's just a part of them that
yeah,
you know. I mean, you as the author have an image in your head, and you're hoping by the subtle conveyance of that detail that you'll create the same image in the reader's head. But I mean, if you don't, you don't. I mean, 'cause they can interpret things any number of different ways beyond what you originally intended as an author.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
I'm with you. I like just that subtlety. I like, you know, that you're focused on the character and the story rather than making a statement.
a lot of times, because Jen and I are different flavors, so like a lot of times in the podcast,
I love that.
it'll just come up. You know what I mean? In organically in conversation, and from context clues, you can figure out. But it's not like hi, it's White Rachel and Black Jen. How's it going?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because you just absolutely no idea with that sort of stuff a lot of the time. And I find that like that's the great thing about writing books in particular, because you can have characters and nobody knows these visual details of them straight away. So if you want to like cut through those kinds of societal prejudices, books are probably one of the best ways to do it. Because I can't remember what comic it was, but there's a comic that I think the publisher didn't want to run with in maybe it was in the 50s. I'll have to find it. I'm gonna have to link it because I've mentioned it now and people will ask about it. But basically, there was an astronaut, and he went and he did some cool astronaut shit. Takes his helmet off at the end of the story, and he's black. And I think like one of the editors of the magazine said, "Our fan base isn't gonna like this," and the writer was like, "Well, I'm doing it anyway." And I think that's what I love about art. It's like, you know what? I don't like your rules. Fuck you. I'm gonna do it anyway. And it makes the world better, and that's why I like this idea. It's taken me. This book, by the way, has technically taken me like since 2016, because I came up with the idea back then. It was going to be called Planetary Overlap and be a sci-fi comedy book where the universes of each story actually overlapped. That idea later evolved into Who Built the Humans, but the idea of the anthology remained incomplete until today. So it wasn't done until today, and I really like the idea of making sci-fi funny again, because these days it's just too damn serious. There's too many people who, for some reason or another, I don't mind people thinking they can fix the world. I think everybody should. Actually, I think that's a healthy delusion to have. If we all believed we can make the world a better place, we would make the world a better place. The issue is people thinking, I'm going to make the world a better place, but my way is the only way to do it. That's the
Absolutely.
That's the problem, because like the one size fits all approach doesn't work.
That actually makes me think of a specific indie sci-fi author I know of that I follow on Twitter, and they actually posted a tweet one time where I just kind of shook my head, because they're really into climate science fiction, cli-fi or whatever you call it. And they basically said that if you aren't writing your stories about climate change, and it's not focused on climate change, then you're doing it wrong as a sci-fi writer. That's all you should be focused on in your stories. And it's like,
oh god,
what? Why?
It should be illegal to be that fucking boring. It really should.
It's like, I mean, I get that you're passionate about it, guy, but I don't want to focus all my stories on that specific topic.
Yeah.
There's so much more. There's so much more out there that you can, use as a plot device, or that you could talk about in your stories. Like, it doesn't have to always be that one. It's kind of like we've taken subjects and we're focusing all on that one subject until we can fix it and make it perfect, and then we can move to another one, instead of acknowledging that, I mean, the earth is fucked, so we may as well just enjoy our time here and talk about whatever the hell we want to.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we could have a asteroid or comet strike us in the next 5, 10 years, and everything's wiped out anyway. So,
True that.
Exactly.
So true. Uh,
but hey, I before the comet hit though, I got that Cli-Fi anthology out, and it sold 10 copies. So I
Yeah.
made the world a better place.
yeah. We had to kill the last tree to get it printed.
Exactly. But we sold 10 copies.
That was the first tree that has ever died by being kicked to death. That's my sense of humor right there. Just the idea of kicking a tree to death. Oh, I'm actually crying with laughter. That's so stupid. Oh, oh. I love stuff like that. But yeah, that's why I'm really glad we managed to get this book together, because it's just absolutely deranged. It's an absolutely deranged book. And that's...
I love that it's so funny, and it's so kind of all over the place, and you know, like you said, silly and funny and whatever. But if you wanted to look deeper, you could, and if you wanted to learn something from it, you could. But
Yeah.
you also don't have to. That's why I asked that question of, you know, whether you were intending to have layers or if you wanted just meme aliens, because you could have both.
Yeah, I've always got that kind of angle going on, and it's I'm really glad you noticed it, to be honest, because my main worry with that is, will anybody notice it? Because like I said with the special relativity joke in Who Built the Humans, nobody's got that yet. There's a time travel sort of Easter egg in one of the stories. You read one of the chapters before the other chapter, because there's like a build your own adventure style in it as well. So if you read like one of them in a different order, you realize that one of the characters was time traveling, but I just never mentioned it in the text. And I thought that was quite fun. And it took 2 years for someone to get it, and that's my friend Angie worked it out, and she's a biologist. So I was like, okay, the smartest person I know has worked it out, and it took her 2 years. Maybe the next one has to be less subtle, but there's a lot going on in that story. Like, I'm not pretending it's really smart or anything. It's just, it's absolute chaos, and you wouldn't naturally read it in that order anyway. So that was kind of like an in joke for the super fans, because she had to. You discover it on the second read. You like, if you have prior knowledge of what happens in the next chapter, then you get it. But if you don't get it. So you literally have to read the book twice to get that. And I talked to like an editor about that and a marketing person, and they just said, why would you put so much effort into writing like a pun or a bit of dialogue that only one person's going to understand? And I said, well, it's like building an open world video game. Somebody might not ever go to that corner where there's a statue in a field somewhere that they can do a side quest for. You know, if you only sell 100 copies of the game, nobody's ever going to see that. But someone might, and they might enjoy it. And that's what I like about writing the bigger books and like hiding those little things in jokes, as I find it quite beautiful, that idea that there is going to be like untrodden ground even in a book, for like hundreds of people could read it, but only one person might get one particular line of dialogue. It might resonate with them. And I find that really special. So I want to just do more of that. And I know it's not going to be like, that kind of stuff isn't a bestseller right away. I don't care. It'd be nice to have more money, because I like eating things, because eating things keeps me alive, and I like being alive. It's a lot of fun. You know, most of the activities that we can do as humans, you kind of, being alive is sort of a prerequisite for them. So, you know, I'd like to continue existing for a while longer. So that's why you want to sell books as an author, but as an artist, you're at odds with that, because you want to write weird shit. I want to write really weird shit. Sometimes I'll read my own stories back, and like the day after, and I'll go, what the fuck? And I think, you know, sometimes I think, well, that needs a lot of editing. Other times I think, oh, it's perfect. You know, that's the reaction I want out of it. But yeah, it is interesting, because with sci-fi comedy, I feel like the average person would have more freedom in their heads when they're reading it to accept weirdness. I think like serious science fiction now, I don't know if you'd agree, John, it's not fantastic anymore. It's not that weird. There's like the more popular stuff is like really solidly based in, you know, currently accepted theories, whereas in the past, science fiction writers used to be scientists in the same, you know, like our friend Sergio Nervers
They took chances.
and AJ actually.
I think that's I think that's what's different about stuff that's produced now in like 2023 versus stuff that, you know, stories that were produced back in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, you know. They took chances back then. They were willing to expand their horizons and think deeper and their minds and come up with something that maybe somebody, an angle that somebody else hadn't tackled, you know, something that someone else hadn't thought of. And that's why, you know, all those authors and those stories are still popular now. And like a lot of your ones that have come about in the last decade or so, I mean, hardly anyone remembers them.
So I have a
Nobody reads
question.
their stuff.
So why do you think that is? Do you think that it's just a case of you know, people before not caring whether or not they were liked as much? You know, do you think it's because of commercial reasons? You know, people nowadays just don't think that it'll sell as well if they think outside of the box, or is it just more of the, you know, I want people to like me, I don't want to be looked at as too weird?
I think there's elements of all those involved in it. I think you do have like a definite nostalgia element where, you know, they grew up reading these specific authors and so they remain popular because they want what they enjoyed as kids, as adults too. And so, I mean, that's why you have endless sequels and reboots of like movies and TV shows. I think you also have the people who don't want to take risks. You know, they want something that's safe and familiar, and they want to be popular. And if you take risks and do something different and get rejected, well, that's like the end of the world. And then I think it's at least with traditional publishing, it's an idea of, well, and some indie publishing gurus are this way too. It's an idea of right to market. You got to write what sells. This is what's popular at the moment. You need to mimic what's popular. Don't create your own thing. Don't be a trendsetter. Be a trend follower.
Yeah, you can't deviate.
And I think it all combines together to where you don't have the same level of originality and experimentation that used to be more widely accepted.
Which is kind of tragic because that's where the greats come from.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's you look at like Edgar Allan Poe, for example. I mean, he invented the detective story, even though he was primarily a horror author. But Edgar Allan Poe in the 21st century wouldn't be able to do that because he'd be told, oh, no, you're a horror author, stay in your lane. And so he wouldn't have been able to invent basically a new genre out of thin air. And that's, you know, and you look at like different authors from the past, they were willing to try out different stories, and you know, that's all they cared about was the story and the character. Didn't matter what genre or whatever it was.
Yeah.
They just went and wrote their story.
The romanticism
But now it's
of a
like,
penniless author.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
But now it's like, oh no, you can't get outside this box that we placed you in.
yeah, it's really problematic. Like creatively, I was reading Worlds of Weird, which was published in 1972. I was reading the paperback today, and the preface of it is celebrating how absolutely batshit insane the stories are. It's literally 8 pages going, we've bought the rights to this story because it was so weird. We were deeply unsettled for a few weeks afterwards. Now we want you to read it. It's basically the premise of those old short story collections, and I wanted to bring that back because I do genuinely maybe I'm not well read, but I do genuinely believe it's been like at least a decade or two since anybody's published a short story collection as ambitious as the one that we've put together here. Because I've just sat down and gone, I want weird people to write weird stuff and not be worried about whether it makes money or not. And god damn it, it's gonna make money. You know, it's gonna be fine. And then if it makes money, the money's gonna go into making the second one. Ad infinitum. Hopefully, should just continue on forever, as it used to be in the good old days. And yeah, I was reading the preface to that book, and there was a bit where he said that he owned a publishing press and he sold all of it just to fund the creation of that book because he believed in it so much. And I thought, these are the people that I feel like I understand. And there's not many of them on the planet, and most of them are deranged, but they get me. You know, they understand who I am and what I want to do. Because I remember sitting in a workshop once with my tutor James Byrne at uni. He's a great guy. And I brought in the Stephanie Glitch, the first draft of the Stephanie Glitch in 2016. And he read like 20 pages of it, and he turned to me and he said, I think this is actually just a big poem. And at the time, like, I was, you know, admittedly maybe hungover, or maybe that day I'd had too many energy drinks. I took a bit of offence to it. I didn't tell him, but I was like, what the fuck is this guy on about? But I got home and I read it back and I thought,
kind of
he's
beautiful.
right. He's right. It is a big poem and it is beautiful, yeah. It was like, I realised I'm sort of forever stuck as a multidisciplinary artist. And, you know, John, you're the same way. Like, you've got your sports journalism and the copywriting and how snappy your sentences are. I know, like, when I had you on my podcast years ago, you said you believed that part of the reason your dialogue was so snappy is because of your history in, you know, writing for sports. I personally think you did yourself a disservice there. I think you've probably always been this clever and you didn't need the sports journalism to help out. But it was an interesting point because you're bringing two really far away genres of writing together and making it work. And that's what we're meant to be doing here. And that's, you know, somebody asked me the other day, what kind of comedy is in the Cosmic Comedy Collection? And I said, most of it. Because there is. Like
I like that.
Yeah, because
I like that.
Especially in like AJ's story, there's like silly stuff and then it's dark stuff and it's silly again and it's a bit existential and then it's dark and then it's silly. And Robin's is kind of like a commentary on, you know, the incompetence of humans versus machines and astronauts and stuff, and yours does that but from a different angle, and it all works out in the end. Kind of like I see it as like jazz. It's like jazz music for your eyeballs. That's what it is. It's just absolute madness. I really liked the book. Obviously I would, if I didn't like the book I wouldn't have fucking published it. That's, by the way, to any indie authors listening, if you don't like your book, don't fucking ask other people to buy it. Stop that. Stop it.
Yeah.
If you hate writing, other hobbies are available. Paint a watercolor.
Exactly.
Walk a dog.
Exactly.
Play
Deal
a
with
video
the
game.
portrait artist
Yeah.
trope.
Sit on the back of a bus and say stuff that's questionable. There's other hobbies that you can have. Yeah.
Go collect stamps and coins.
Yeah. I hate when people are like, oh, I'm really struggling. I'm understanding. I know the irony of what I'm about to say here. I'm going to say it anyway. I hate when people say they really hate writing, and they've like finished a 305,000 fantasy novel and that. I hate writing. It's so boring. I wish I could quit. And I'm like, well, nobody's buying your book, so it's not going to affect you financially if you do quit. And I don't mean that in a cutting way. I mean, there's people that I've spoken to that I've tried to do a bit of coaching with them, like on Instagram and stuff, and they've realised through talking to me that they actually just wanted to be a musician.
Oh.
Stuff like that. And it's like, sometimes we have an idea for something and we don't know what shape it's in. And I think the reason so many people flock to writing is because of that image of the tortured artist who's only ever appreciated when he's dead. That really appeals to emos. So that's why there's so many of us in the genre, you know, like, nobody's going to appreciate me till I'm dead. So I'm going to write a really big sci-fi. Sorry, Rachel.
Or the ones that drive me nuts are the ones where they're working on their novels, and they every day they're posting on social media about how hard it is and how they're trying to avoid writing and they're avoiding their stories and
Yeah.
they can't control their stories, and it's like, oh brother, just stop.
Yeah, it's weird because I had one like
Stop writing if you hate it that badly.
yeah. I can't remember what I was going to say. Probably wasn't that interesting anyway. Rachel, were you going to say something?
Go be an accountant.
No, so it's funny because I do also have that romanticism in my head of, like the 3 a.m. manic Fitzgerald slamming on the key on the typewriter with a cigarette and a bottle of brandy or whatever. But I also love it. You know what I mean? Like, yes, writing is hard, and having characters and developing stories and making sure that you're doing the best work that you can and getting your stuff out there. It's not easy. You're literally thinking your own thoughts while putting thoughts into someone else's head who you created in a world that you just made up. And it's not easy, but you guys are 100% accurate when you say, like, if you don't like it, go do something else. Like, it sucks and it's hard, but it's like a beautiful pain. Like it's a beautiful, like, suck,
Oh, yeah.
That's the title of one of John's upcoming stories, isn't it? That's a no.
What, the beautiful suck?
Yes.
A beautiful fact.
I just wanted to wait until he had to say it himself for clarification. I don't know why. I just thought it was funny. I just thought it was funny. Doesn't matter. we'll let it slide. But yeah, it's an interesting thing because, like, I never mean it in a mean-spirited way, and I think people take it the wrong way. It's like, if you really like, think of a house party, for example. Imagine you're a teenager, you get into going to clubs, partying with your friends. You go to a party, you don't like it, and you can't get a lift home, so you hang out for a bit. You're bored. You go to the next one. You're bored. You go to the next one. Feels like it goes on forever. You're bored. You wouldn't keep going to house parties. You'd think, you know what, I prefer walks in the park, or I want to go bird watching. For some reason, people, despite how much they don't like writing, will come back to it. And readers do the same thing, which I think is absolutely bizarre. You'll see people in reading groups going, oh, I really hated Stephen King's latest novel. Sorry, Stephen King, by the way. I'm using your books because they're really fucking long. So, like, they say, oh, I could only get to page 20 of Stephen King's novel before I decided I wanted to pull my eyes out with a spoon. But I read the rest of it anyway, and it took me 5 years. And I decided that I actually didn't like it, and I should have quit on page 20. And I'm like, well, why didn't you?
Yeah.
Why not? Because I never buy a new drink when I'm out. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll have that. What's that? Wasp flavored cola. Yeah, I'll give that a shot. And you get like a sip through it, and you think this makes me want to be sick. You don't then drink the rest of it. And I think
You toss it out.
yeah, like people just completely torture themselves with books, and it's like at that point, I'm like, can we blame the schools for forcing kids to read books they don't like? Or are people doing this to themselves, and that's why the literature scene is getting boring? Because authors are scared of readers having that visceral reaction. Like, I've got that scene where Lax Morales is going to set a motel on fire with a guy trapped inside it. And that's dark as hell. But I think my readers will get through it, because it has a reason to be there. It's not just there for the shock factor. I don't even think it's that shocking compared to like some of the revelations in the book, like some of the off-screen, like what the aliens are up to kind of shit. I don't think it'll be that shocking. But yeah, it is an interesting thing, because like you don't want to drag yourself through, like you don't as a reviewer, Rachel, want to, like you said before, you don't want to drag yourself through a book that you don't like. You certainly don't want to tell the author or the author's audience that you didn't like it. But I think readers privately, even in their own homes, they will just sit with a book they don't like and they will keep reading it. Whereas I don't do that, and I think it means that I think it's part of the reason I'm pretty cheerful, even if like life beats me down. I've still got the capacity to tell jokes, because if I'm not enjoying something artistic, I will just straight up abandon it. It will just I'll just drop out of it. You'll see it in my Minecraft world. To anybody watching the YouTube, you will notice in my Minecraft world the castle is missing its back half. That's because I got bored and I decided that the back half wasn't I wasn't the right person to build it at that time. So I wanted to build a farm instead because I thought a farm would be better. Because if I'm interested in it, I'm better at it. That's how my brain works, and I think readers are like that as well. You know, you don't have to read a book if you don't like it, but you should read our book because you will like it, and if you don't like it, I know where you live.
You know what I've noticed too is I've noticed too that once someone comes across something that they dislike, it's dead to them forever. So if someone were to pick up, we'll go with Stephen King. If someone were to pick up a King book and they read it, they didn't like it, but they continued reading it, they finished it, they hated it,
Yeah.
they would never, ever, ever touch another single Stephen King book ever again. And it's like there are so many directors where I've watched a movie, didn't really love it, but a different movie I was here for, you know? And it's like they suffer through the book and then the author's dead to them forever.
Yeah, it's difficult. I wonder if
Well,
that's
it's
due
just kind of
to.
a funny way to approach things, honestly.
Yeah, I wonder if that's due to, we do see authors and media creators as like monoliths now, and that's, I've struggled with my marketing on social media because poet, comedian, author, Lego creator. If if you try to be all four of those things on Instagram, it will confuse the algorithm. So I have like loads of different alt accounts on Instagram, and that's the only reason I think that some of the stuff I did recently went viral, is that the algorithm finally understood what the hell I was doing, and it showed my stuff to the right people. Whereas in the past, it was showing my Lego reels to science fiction readers, and my science fiction books to people who want dick jokes, and my dick jokes to people who want to buy Lego sets, and it just was not working. So there's an issue with that, like the way that social media's got people, and we now see celebrities and because authors are a sort of weird silent celebrity, because you see their picture on a book and they've sold millions of copies, but they're never outside because they're working on the next one. But you have that effect where you think, well, Stephen King, if I read that book by Stephen King, I didn't like it, all of his other books are going to be the same. And I think even if he's writing in a very tight style, if all of his books are exactly the same, I would like to hope his publisher would ask him if he'd recently developed a head injury, because I think even in just one author, and poetry book's a good example. The beginning of a poetry book often feels very different to the end of it, unless it's one of those modern TikTok poetry books where it's like, his legs were crossed, it reminded me of legs, I'm sad about legs, and then everybody's retweeting it saying how beautiful it is, and I'm like, are you people ill? What the fuck is this?
Everyone thinks they're T.S. Eliot, but it's really just 3 words on a page for no reason.
Yeah, it's like I've had people actually yell at me at gigs for this when I've done the poetry circuit. I'll continue to say it because I'm bigger than them and I'm not scared. A lot of poetry these days is just diary entries that people have put line breaks in for.
They think they're T.S. Eliot.
It's just I feel bad about a thing. That's not a poem. That's just a statement. There's nothing poetic in that. And I think that's an issue in the arts as a whole, is as well as being restricted, people are saying stuff is something that it isn't, and then we're just accepting it. We're just saying this is a poem, and everybody's like, yeah, fair enough, you know more than me, that is a poem. And it's not a poem. It isn't a poem. It's not a poem. Stop lying to your audience. And on the other side of that, you've got readers thinking, well, this guy wrote a really bad sci-fi book, so I reckon his romance novels are terrible as well. And that's that doesn't scale well, because it's a good example you had, Rachel, because the movie About Time, I can't remember the director, but he usually does rom-coms, and I have liked some of them. I've not liked them nearly as much as I liked About Time, and that's nothing to do with the fact that it's got time travel in it. It's actually just a really genuinely quite beautiful film about growing up, moving away from home, your relationship with your parents, finding love, screwing up, and the time travel element being he tries to go back in time to unscrew up this date that he went on, because he really loves this girl and he wants to make it work. And it's a really beautiful movie, but I've not really liked the director's other movies nearly as much. I've not disliked them, I've just not been interested in them at all. And I think, like, as an artist, I know I have that, because I have people that like my poetry and they do not read science fiction. So like, there's no point of them subscribing to my newsletter. And at the same time, I've had, and John will know this, you know, on Substack, you know, they know you as a science fiction author, but then if you crack a joke, goodbye 10 subscribers, like in one fell swoop.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's like, have you guys even read my books? Like, what are you here for?
You get somebody that signs up because they want to read. They got a short story as a reader magnet from you.
Yeah.
And then you write a poem and they bail on you immediately.
Yeah, it's very.
It's like weird.
It is a weird thing. But yeah, it's I really enjoyed putting the book together. What did you think of the order of the stories, Rachel, by the way?
I feel as though this is a trick question that I may have missed. What do you mean?
It absolutely isn't a trick question. I understand why you would think that because it's me, but it isn't.
I'm like, what hidden meaning did I not get?
Yeah. No, I'm just wondering if you read it left to right, like how it like played out. Because we were umming and ahhing in the beginning, like wondering, you know, what story should we put first. I kind of put my story as the freebie on Book Funnel because, as the mascot, I thought, well, I want everybody else's audiences to have to like buy into the book to read those stories, whereas I don't mind like giving mine away to help people, out, you know, to get people reading it. And that's the only reason mine's at the front as well. I think mine's at the front. I should really know that. Mine is at the front, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I was a bit uncomfortable about doing that, but it felt thematically like the right thing to do.
You know, I do feel like you having your book up front is probably the best because you did the introduction. So having it be the introduction and then flowing into yours was probably a really good choice. I do feel as though with anthologies having you know, a collection of works, having the order and trying to figure out the order in which to present it is something that's underappreciated by consumers, you know, because I feel like it's one of those things that was like, you guys probably spent so much time trying to figure out the best way to present it, and I'm like, yeah, no, it was good.
No, yeah, it was.
Well, and it's tricky because if you have like shifts in tone between entries in the anthology, if you put them in the wrong order, it can be really jarring as a reader.
Yeah, that's the bit that took the most time, and like I knew from the beginning I wanted to put AJ's in the middle because his was like the longest story, and I've found with anthologies it feels better to put the longest story in the middle. There's like an 11,000 word long story in Who Built the Humans, and that's like half the word count of the universe that it's in, and it goes right in the middle of it, and it didn't feel right anywhere else. So like same effect here with the Cosmic Comedy Collection, where I wanted AJ's story to be in the beginning, no in the middle, and it sort of helps bracket the stories either side of it because there's 5. It worked out really well, and the way the others were was intentional because I wanted them to play off each other, and like so I sat down and I thought, well, this one has this theme, and this theme. I don't want 2 stories with a similar theme to be next to each other. Because then it might feel a bit sameish. It definitely wouldn't have done, but I think it's healthy to be worried about that stuff even if it doesn't actually apply, because then you're not just creating a good product, you're creating a really good product. Because if you as an artist are thinking, the readers won't notice, then it's going to be an average book. But if you're thinking 1 in every 100 readers might get this joke, so I should make sure it's well written, then it's going to be a good book, you know. You're gonna think, right?
Well, and it's all about putting your best foot forward as an author. I mean, yeah, you as an author, you primarily write for yourself first and foremost. You write a story that you'd like to read.
Yeah.
But you also have to be aware of what your audience likes and wants that you're trying to target. And so, I mean, you want to make the reading experience as pleasant as possible, I guess, best way to put it.
Yeah, definitely.
I
You,
think with
you don't want to have things that draw them out of the story and draw them out of the experience, like wonky formatting or
Mm.
you know something like that's easily controlled and fixed before you publish it.
Well, and I feel like too, with writing and publishing, I feel like there are so many things that an author has to do to make it flow so seamlessly that the reader doesn't even realize it's a problem. Like when you're reading a book and you see a stale character, a character with no arc, a character that doesn't really, do much, you notice it. You're like, oh, this character's kind of boring. You know what I mean? But if you write it
Mhm.
beautifully and well, the character arc goes so smoothly that you're there with the character. And at the end of the book, you're like, holy crap, that was amazing. But you don't really realize it when it's happening. You don't learn the lessons. You learn them in the broader scale, but not, you're like, oh, okay, so I was just taught something, or I was just, introduced to something.
Yeah, it's very true. Really, that's a really good point. I don't have anything to add to it. I just wanted to say it was a good point.
It's character development. It depend on how many, like if you're planning a standalone book or a series with the same character. It's really kind of a delicate balance to try and strike within just a single story, because I mean you want to advance a character and grow a character within a realistic time frame.
Mm.
Like, I mean, you want to develop them, but you don't want to like overdevelop them. I guess you could say,
Or too much too soon.
yeah, where they're suddenly learning the lesson so quickly. They're suddenly changing a characteristic so quickly that you're like, whoa, wait a minute, that wouldn't happen in real life.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a hard, delicate balance.
I'll be back in about
you do have to advance
30
the
seconds.
character,
I've just got to run off for a
but
second.
you have to be realistic on the kind of the timetable and everything.
Yeah, pacing is a serious thing to pay attention to as an author.
And I know that like with my own books, I've had a couple of readers where they got frustrated because they didn't, they said in a review they didn't feel like that there was much of a character arc with characters in one of my stories. But there was a character arc, but I expanded it over 3 stories because it was a trilogy. And so I'm like looking ahead at how I'm growing them over the course of a trilogy as opposed to just one standalone book. And it's one of those things where I wanted to go to them and say, hey, look, if you go read the other 2, you'll see where I'm going with these characters.
You're like, don't give up on me yet.
Yeah, it's like you'll see how they change and develop. Maybe that it's not clicking with them initially what should be clicking with them, but that's real life. Sometimes it takes you a year or 2 to learn a lesson you should have learned in a month or 2.
And
sometimes
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm working on a project too, and one of the storylines within it I wanted to happen quickly, and I have the constant struggle of like, oh God, is it happening too quickly? Is it now, unrealistic in how fast this is happening?
Yeah, or they like just and superhuman in their intelligence and how they're figuring everything out so quickly.
Yeah, that's a really hard one. Like, I've had to... I'm back, by the way. I had to go for a toilet break. I'm sorry, podcasters. I only planned for an hour. But yeah, I'm going to just leave that in. That's one of the things I love about this podcast in particular, is I decided right in the beginning to be like natural. So like save there's too many podcasts like these. I don't know about the writing world. I don't listen to that many, to be honest. but there's too many like comedy podcasts where they kind of cut the setup for a joke, and you just kind of you sat there in TikTok just listening to like a list of punchlines and laughter, and it's really weird. So you just like
You know,
scroll through
I-
TikTok and it'll go a clockwork horse, and you're like, what the fuck? What's going on? And there's like a 40-minute setup to that, and you see it like people comment on comedians going, "Oh, this comedian's not funny." Really brings out the sexists as well, because it's like, "Oh, there's no funny female comedian." There's loads. There's absolutely loads. It's just the stuff that gets traction on TikTok is often the stuff that involves the word boob. So like all of her funnier material, which isn't about boobs, isn't going to get seen by the algorithm, because the algorithm is like a 14-year-old boy trapped inside a warehouse somewhere. And that is how TikTok works. It's like if it can jiggle, it can sell.
No, there really is something to that in I've noticed that people kind of gravitate towards things that are spoon-fed to them. So if something comes up on your for you page, oh, this is what everyone thinks. Oh, this is what everyone is seeing. Oh, this is what's really popular right now, when in reality there's so much more to it. You know, there's so many other things that are out there. You just have to look in a broader spectrum than just what's handed to you on your for you page.
Yeah, 100%. It's really difficult to like get past that first filter of content as well. I hope this book gets past it. I really hope it gets past it, because there's some great stories in it that need to be seen by people. It needs to be seen to be believed.
And there's such a big audience for a book like this.
Yeah.
To be honest, you know, there's so many sci-fi fans that would just go crazy for this.
Oh, thanks.
Oh,
I
yeah.
hope you're right.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to do like what I'm gonna do is like, as the comedy person of the group, which is a weird thing to say because it's a book of funny stories, but like I've got the privilege of going outside and telling jokes every now and again. I don't even know if I'm a comedian or not. I know a lot of my friends are comedians. I hang out with them, and sometimes I go on stage and tell jokes, but I still have a little bit of imposter syndrome about that. Perhaps because I know really like people that have done comedy for longer than I've been alive. So like I'll be hanging out with those guys. I'm like, of course I'm not going to be as good as them. But yeah, I've got the privilege of being able to say, you know, I can go out and tell the jokes to people and then say, this joke was from a story in a book. Have you heard of books? We used to have books before we had pornography everywhere. It was kind of like boobs that you had to imagine with your mind. Especially with the older sci-fi books. Jesus, I read not to go on another tangent, but I read an old story today. Holy hell, that was suspicious. The way there was like, he spent longer describing the woman than the alien, and I'm like, that's not the kind of story I'm here for. I signed up for the alien, you know. Don't judge me. Different strokes for different folks. We all like what we like. Talk about the mandibles. Get the mandibles out for the lads. it's such a weird thing, because like, yeah, some stories, like older stories, they're just strange, but yeah, if I've got the privilege of going to these comedy nights, and I'm really looking forward to reading some bits from the stories out to people. I'm also going to have a branded t-shirt which I wear out and about. Seems like the right thing to do. Really looking forward to having that as well. I need to get you one, John. You can wear one about the town. The Cosmic Comedy Collection with a QR code on my chest, and just like lurk outside comedy bars and stuff. That's my goal for advertising it anyway.
Have two words. Just have the words "scan me."
Yeah. Yeah, some of it's just like
They'll be like, "What is it?" You'll find out.
yeah, free pizza. Yeah, I'm bringing my
Why
old.
do they want me to scan them?
I'm bringing my old tagline back out for Who Built the Humans. I might honestly just use it for the Cosmic Comedy Collection as well, because fuck it, you know, I can use the tagline twice. Who cares? screw the rules. But yeah, what I might do is my original Instagram handle used to say, "My book can make your girlfriend laugh and you can't. How does that make you feel?" Because I just wanted to like, yeah, that kind of laughter. Like it makes you guys laugh, but I had it up there for a few months, and I'll be honest, it annoyed a lot of people as well. There's a few people that were like, "Oh, I bet your book isn't that funny," and I'm like, okay, something tells me that your girlfriend doesn't like your jokes. You know, because the only people that are gonna be offended by that are actually the people that have that issue.
You're like, you seem a little bitter.
Yeah, it's like when people start insulting you on YouTube and you notice that their profile picture isn't like they're clearly a very vain person, and you think, I don't want to stoop to this level, but if I insult their looks, I know that's the most expedient way of getting them to shut up.
Well, you know, one out of 5 people can't perform jokes.
Yeah.
In the company of their partner.
Mm. I just got that. There should be a special pill people can take if they can't perform jokes in the bedroom. That's what this book is. That's what this book is. And I think that's a good point to end the podcast.
It's a joke pill.
It's laughter Viagra.
Yeah, we're 2 hours in, and I'm worried I'm killing Rachel here. Through the process of erosion. It's like she's like an inch shorter.
I'm 5'3". I can't afford to be any shorter.
Yeah, you'll like, there'll just be like a pop and a twinkle, and everybody will be like, oh, where's Rachel gone? Shit. She's gone to live in the quantum realm. But yeah, like we could advertise this book and say, I'm going to say it right now. I think this book is an antidote to boredom, and if you have problems in the bedroom, and your girlfriend only laughs at you when you take your trousers off, then you should buy this book and read it to her, because it's funny, and it'll make her love you again, and maybe she'll let you see the kids on weekends and stuff like that. It'll be good. I got really dark at the end. You know what else gets really dark at the end? Life. So buy the book while you've still got time. Yeah. I try.
Well, if that's not effective, I don't know what is.
You've only got so long left. Before my mum asked me to do something, I don't know what it was. It was some chore, and I just went, I can't do it. And she went, why not? And I went, I might only have 60 years left. And she just looked at me and she went, it's less than that. And I was like, okay,
Oh
I'll do the chore. The chore will be done. I will do the chore. Good little boy. No need for the frets. I don't need that. But yeah, like I say, she's funnier than I am. So it'd be great if I could get my mum in the next comedy book. That'd be wild. So you guys got anything more to say? I'm acutely aware we've been going for 2.5 hours now, I think.
Goodness.
Big podcast.
Oh wow. I
It
lost
doesn't
track
feel
of
like
time.
it.
I know, that's the great thing about like doing the comedy side of things, is like you can literally, you get so much, you learn so much from it, but in like a non-preachy way. Like I've had ideas for like 4 new stories. John, I'm sure you have as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay. Slight hesitation.
He ran away.
He was thinking about one of his stories a bit too much there. I don't know, maybe you have as well, Rachel. Or at least
I definitely do.
Yeah. That's what I love about like
If not story-wise, podcast-wise.
Yeah.
My
Thanks again
mind's
for having
always
me,
like
honestly,
thinking on stories.
Yeah, like I've to loop back to, we're gonna wind up doing another half an hour here, but screw it, it's interesting. If you guys find it interesting and you've got the time, let's go for it. Thinking back on the whole representation, on like people not feeling represented in books, I find that really interesting, because like I've had people message me and talk about, I've got an autistic character in one of my books, and they've worked it out, but the only people that have worked it out are autistic people. So I was like, right, I don't care if this book gets good reviews or not. You like it, you're my audience now. Just you.
I kind of love that.
Because it's like, as long as they like it, then you've done all right. Or if like some random person on the internet goes, I met an autistic person in Walmart once in 2012 and they weren't like this. 1 star. And it's like, no, don't
Jeez.
don't do
I
that.
can actually picture a review with like that.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, I wrote a joke about disability awareness a while ago that someone had the audacity to be offended by, and I think it's the most innocent joke I've ever wrote. And I said, most companies' idea of disability awareness is waiting until somebody parks in a disabled spot, pointing out of the window and then going, "There's one." That's it. That's as shallow as it goes for a lot of stuff, and that's why I think like literature, especially like sci-fi and comedy, has that unique, almost a license. It's like society's allowed us to go a little bit further and to just talk about people as people, which I think every other fucking art form should already be doing, but that's beside the point. You know, because we've got all kinds of weird characters in my one. I'm you know, not in my one. I meant the Cosmic Comedy Collection. I was reading the title in Minecraft, and it's like, I'm so proud of this book. I keep calling it my little book. It's not. It's 20% mine. It's 20% mine. Like the average millennial house is 20% theirs. But yeah, it's just it's a lot of fun. I'm really excited to like have people buy the book and like review it. I was going to check the sales stats whilst we were on the podcast, but I realized before that it takes draft to digital like 2-3 days to catch
It depends on which channel it is on there.
Yeah.
Like, Smashwords will update the same day, but most of the others it takes a day.
Right, that's fair. We were still waiting on Amazon and Smashwords for the final upload, because we had to pass all the security checks and prove to them I'm not a robot, which I struggle with.
And that it wasn't plagiarized.
Yeah, especially because it's a multiple author work. They're like an extra bit edgy that I'm like, they don't want me to be stealing from other people, which is, I'm glad they're doing it. It's an inconvenience if you're not a criminal. But I'm glad it's there. Do you know what I mean? Like, it stops the bad things from happening. John, have you seen the slime monsters, by the way, on the YouTube? Or I might send it to you in a bit. You can see them later.
I saw it like just under the title where you did like the little the little slime monsters under there.
Yeah, I've got a little cave system going on now. It's actually, I'm starting to prefer this. So go on.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say that I pulled up the YouTube live while we were talking, probably an hour and a half ago at this point, and I've just been like quietly watching you build this. I like it.
Oh, thanks. I hope you don't mind the YouTube title being completely wrong, but that's an error that I can rectify in post production. It's the
one thing I like about it.
Yeah.
Is I really like kind of, it had almost like an Atari Space Invaders feel to it.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
And I like that. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I wanted them to be like cutesy and blocky.
That's why I thought back to the old Atari video game, Space Invaders.
Oh, thanks, John.
Like the slime monsters kind of looked like them.
Oh, nice one. Yeah, what's interesting about that is I actually made these out of like slime blocks in Minecraft, slime and honey, the 2 sticky blocks in the game. And I didn't need to. Obviously, I could have used any blocks, but for the sake of, I don't know, continuity in Minecraft, it just felt right to make them out of slime blocks. Also, you can bounce on this guy, so you can bounce on that one. Oh, I did that wrong. You can bounce on him, which is fun. It's completely unnecessary. But yeah, we've got a book cover now. This is in my Redstone world as well. So, do you guys want to wrap up soon? I might maybe wrap up soon. I've got to be out.
I'll have to jet here in a second. I've got duty calls for my sports writing quote unquote day job.
Fair enough, dude.
Tonight.
I'm just going to let YouTube just stare at this deeply unsettling redstone piston door that I've made. This will, by the way, be in my next video. I decided that Minecraft doors weren't already big enough, and that this door is not actually a door, but a wall that flies away from you.
Oh.
So you've got more room. So basically, you stand in a bookshelf, and you can just walk down, and the wall is just flying above your head. Nice and fun.
Nice.
That's because my castle's going to have like a 5x7 piston door, which is really... I know you guys aren't into Minecraft, but most of my audience on YouTube is kind of like half Minecraft, half podcast. So I wanted to keep the nerds in as well. This also adds good thumbnail. But yeah, maybe I should have added some redstone to the book cover, like made stuff light up. But I just didn't have the time. Like, it's hard to concentrate on talking and building at the same time. I think I've done an okay job of both today. I actually really like this format. I wanted to do this a while ago, have podcast and building at the same time, because I think it appeals to like a wider group of people. And you know, the prevailing advice a lot of the time is, you know, just do one thing and be boring. But what I've found is a lot of the people that like my stuff and John's stuff, the kind of people that would like the Cosmic Comedy Collection, they like a lot of other cool nerdy stuff as well. So like, they will like Minecraft, they might like Lego, they'll probably like live comedy. If you know, if they're capable of getting to it, they'll like it. But yeah, so the ebook for this is out tonight. The link is gonna be on the YouTube description and pretty much on all of my social medias. I'm Real Philip Carter pretty much everywhere, and if I'm not talking about it on one of those accounts, it's because I'm incompetent and you're gonna have to bully me on the internet so I remember. But it is a good book. My lack of advertising skills is overcompensated by the fact that I'm really good at collecting funny people together and convincing them to write a story. Every story in this book is exclusive to the book. You cannot get it anywhere else. So there's a unique sales point for any of you marketing students out there. If you want to read these stories, you literally can't read them anywhere else unless you're a psychic, in which case I will start to send horrible images into your brain if you do try to steal stories from the book. I've collected a series of disturbing Polaroids, so don't even try. Just buy the thing. It's good. It's worth the money. It's like the same price as a nice pint of beer or a Guinness perhaps, and it's good and you should get it. And if you don't get it and you find that, like, you know, your relationship breaks down, maybe those things are connected. You know, you gotta think about that. We live in a simulation. Everything's connected. Maybe if you buy the Cosmic Comedy Collection, maybe she'll reply to your Snapchat messages. She won't, but you'll be distracted by the funny ha-has in the book. There's slime monsters, AI, cats that fly, some other stuff, aliens, a bit more aliens, actually quite a lot of aliens, and some more space nonsense, and lots of snappy, funny dialogue. This podcast was funny. I actually think the book might be funnier. So, you know, it's such a weird thing. Get it. Get the book. Look, there's a little planet. The planet isn't actually on the book. It's just on this book cover that I made in Minecraft. The actual book cover's better. It has the Cosmic Cocks on it, which was the original title of the book, and until Amazon was like, you can't have the word cock in a book title. I was like, okay, fine. It's now the Cosmic Comedy Collection. I hope you're happy with yourself, Amazon. I hope you're happy.
I just want to add that if people pass up the chance to read this book, they're going to risk angering the universe. And here's the thing. Do you really want the universe to trap you inside a realm where you're forced to watch endless videos of influencers doing trending TikTok challenges just on an eternal loop?
That's true.
Do you really want that? Because that's what you're asking the universe to do to you if you don't get the book.
It's like a really warped version of Live Aid. Every time I clap my hands and Instagram, a TikToker twerks for no reason whatsoever. It's like this guy was just selling cutlery. Why is he shaking his ass? What's going on? Maybe, I have a theory that everybody on TikTok just has worms. I think that's a fairly natural conclusion to a podcast about books, isn't it? To insinuate that people on social media have worms. I think that's fine. That's a nice conclusion. Family friendly. Sort of.
That's the
Rachel,
perfect note to go out on.
yeah, Rachel, have you got any last messages to go out into the world before, the asteroid hits us? Anything like that?
I do. I have two. So when you're reviewing a book, make sure that you review the book itself and not bits and pieces that you may like or dislike. And also check out Devilish Bookworms on everything at Devilish Bookworms. Basically, we're really active on Threads, but
Yeah.
you could listen to our podcast too. That's cool.
I'm tempted to get Threads, but I'm already tired enough of Instagram. Is it any good?
So it started out brilliant, and it's kind of turning into like Twitter's little younger sibling.
Yeah,
But it's still better.
fair enough. So that's Devilish Bookworms on Threads. And
Yes.
you're also on Instagram as well.
I am.
Yeah.
We are on Instagram, and basically the podcast can be found wherever you get your podcasts: Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts,
Yep.
the whole nine.
It's absolutely everywhere, as is mine, and as is quite a lot of John's stuff. John, do you need a shout out?
Just if you want to check out my books, you can go to my author website, johnkuhn.net. I
Yeah.
have them all listed there. You can also subscribe to my newsletter on Substack, Strange New Worlds, where I have original stories, poems, and behind the pages articles, where I talk about some of the backstory to my different stories. And also, I have an occasional Friday feature called Folklore Friday, where I explore
I love
bits
that
of
feature.
modern and ancient folklore.
Yeah, that is a good feature.
Ooh.
And if you're the kind of person
So
that
one of my
forgets-
recent ones was actually an article on the Mandela effect.
Oh yeah, I
How
think I read
fitting.
that the other day. Or maybe I didn't read it and the whole universe is wrong.
I think it's probably the second one.
Yeah, probably the second one. Definitely. I feel like so you should buy the Cosmic Comedy Collection if you're listening to this, because all the other books are actually a CIA hologram projected by lizards who fire lasers out of their nipples that kill children. So think about that. If you don't buy our book, you're directly supporting that thing that I just made up. So yeah, think about that.
And you don't want to be supporting that.
No, you don't want to be
No.
I don't think many people want to support any of the things that I've made up. I don't even know if I do. But yeah, Cosmic Comedy Collection, it's got some space in it, it's got some comedy in it, and for the free people still listening, thank you for being here. I do know there's genuinely, like, right now, pretty much free people that are really into the stuff that I put out here, and they will be listening, so that was a genuine thanks for you being here. And if you have got all this way through, could you please comment the word banana 3 times on YouTube so I know you got this far? It will confuse people who haven't got this far. And that is a pleasure that we can share between ourselves, like a secret evil club, like 2 robots that have developed their own language that the humans don't understand, and we just use it to troll them. So yeah, just comment the word banana 3 times, or some kind of madcap conspiracy theory. But then again, it is YouTube, so I might not be able to distinguish you from all the other people. So yeah, we'll go for 3 bananas, which is also potentially a good rom-com title. And I'll leave you on that quite potentially disturbing note. Goodbye, everyone, and I shall see you in the next podcast, which will be in an indeterminate amount of time, potentially in the future, possibly in the past, because timey-wimey stuff. Goodbye, YouTube. Goodbye, my friend. You have been the one. You have been the one for me.